A Sports Bash Tuesday, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Live video streaming on the 97.3 ESPN YouTube channel. What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Heddings producing today's show. You out there, we've got a hot Phillies team 20 games into the Don Mattingly era, and they are 16-4 with another win last night. This one a come-from-behind win, 5 straight for the Phils, 16-4 since Don Mattingly took over. We're going to look at that Phillies Fastball today, Phillies Mailbag with Frank. Dave Gallagher will join us at 5 o'clock tonight. So 20 games. What has changed about the Phillies under Don Mattingly? Very interested to see what everybody out there's takeaways are on why the Phillies have all of a sudden turned this thing around. There's a lot of variables here. I don't think there's any one variable that is the reason, but it's a combination of things. And we saw a combination of them last night in the game that the Phillies come from behind and win again. One of the things that has really changed about this team is the pitching. Andrew Painter last night, 6 innings, probably could have kept going. Mattingly decides he was at 70 pitches, so I guess he could have kept going. They decide to go to the bullpen there. He said after the game, once they got the lead, their blueprint, and we talk about this all the time, whether Don Mattingly's the manager or Rob Thompson's the manager, a blueprint game for the Phillies is, can my pitcher get 6, and then I have my guy in the 7th, 8th, and 9th. And we think that if we get to 7, 8, 9, our bullpen will take care of business, and that's what happened last night. You had Keller, Alvarado, Kerkering, Duran. Kerkering had to come in and get the out in the 8th, but overall, there's a lot of things in that game last night that have really shaped this little stretch for the Phillies, which is timely hits, big hits, and getting more production from a guy like Bohm. 2 for 3 last night with a home run. From a guy like Stott, big home run to take the lead in the 8th. And then, you get a night where Schwarber doesn't play and other guys pick him up. But it's the starting pitching that has changed things. We've seen it with everybody other than Aaron Nola here recently. Painter pitching well, Sanchez, Cy Young-esque, Wheeler, Cy Young-esque. I mean, those guys right now, we'll see Luzardo tonight. They also won a game against a left-handed pitcher. Lodolo, the last time he pitched against the Phillies, dominated them. Last night, 3 strikeouts, 5 walks. He had 97 pitches, couldn't get out of the 6th. And then you get into their bullpen, and game over. Phils end up winning. 20 games into the Don Mattingly era, what are you guys seeing that is different about the Phillies? I always talk about the thing about a manager that I think matters the most is the culture. Are you comfortable? Do you know your role? All those things. And I think under Rob Thompson, which is why I said in the offseason, I would have probably moved on from Rob. I think his messaging got a little stale. And maybe the players got a little too comfortable. And maybe there wasn't enough emphasis on the little things. And therefore, I was quite okay with the Phillies making the decision to move on from Rob Thompson. Now, I wasn't 100% sure whether things would change because, quite frankly, it wasn't a manager thing to me. It was a player thing to me. But these players obviously looked at it and said, one of two things. One, we got the guy fired, but we probably needed a little pick-me-up. 2, you take a look at your 9-19. You look at the roster that they have, and they have to look at themselves in the mirror and say, we got that guy fired because we weren't playing good enough. And I think collectively, you had a bunch of veteran players on this team. This is not a young team that came to terms with, and it was all coupled with a stretch of games that they had against the Cubs and the Braves. When those two teams were playing really good, you guys are playing really bad. Coming out of that, they had a stretch of games that I think collectively you say, hey, listen, we got that guy fired. Maybe he shouldn't have been here to begin with, and that's quite plausible. I have said many times I thought they should have fired him after the playoff loss, not because I thought he stunk or did a bad job. It just, hey, sometimes you got to move on, and sometimes you got to make a change. And this stretch of games, as many people had kind of said, it kind of coincided when the Phillies' schedule lightened up a little bit, and there was an opportunity for them to play some better baseball. Mattingly said it before the game last night. Hey, listen, we're not doing anything different other than when there's a ball to be caught, now we're catching it. Where before, maybe we weren't making the play, and then teams were capitalizing on us making an error. Defense has tightened up a little bit here. But you can't quantify how much, if you're Rob Thompson, you're looking at Alec Boehm saying, gee, thanks, buddy. Like, man, oh, man, I could have used you hitting 400 in the month of May. Bryson Stott leads the majors in RBI in the month of May. Bryson Stott has 18 RBI in 18 days. Those are things that they just weren't getting over the first 28 games of the season. They weren't getting Christopher Sanchez Cy Young. They weren't getting Zach Wheeler Cy Young outings. They weren't getting Andrew Painter 3-hit ball. They also have a bullpen that was really struggling. Brad Keller is starting to kind of find his way a little bit, but he has been a disappointment. Jose Alvarado was not good the first month of the season. He is starting to settle into a role now. Johan Duran was hurt. He's back now. You get to the ninth inning, it's game, set, match. So there's a lot of positives that obviously were not positives the first 28 games of the season. But over the last 20, 16-4, by the way, it helps to have Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber going bananas. And Schwarber didn't even play last night, but you guys know the streak and heater he's on. 5 straight wins, longest win streak of the season. It's tied for the longest active in baseball with the Dodgers. Actually, you look at the standings right now, and we're in May, so no one really cares about the standings. The Phillies are actually now within arm's length of the Braves. I mean, before you're 9, 10, they're 7 games back of the Braves. And the Braves just had a big injury today with Drake Baldwin, who is going to be out for a couple of weeks. He's an MVP candidate. For those of you who haven't been watching the Braves, I mean, you lose an MVP candidate in that lineup, and things are a lot different. Remember where the Phillies were run differential? They're a -16 now. They've almost evened that thing out. They were the worst team in baseball run differential-wise. So what over the last 20 games are you guys noticing? Hit us up on the Whitehorse RV text board, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. I really want to hear what you guys think. Like, you're watching these Phillies game every night. What are you noticing that's different about this team? Is it something that Don Mattingly has done that you are drawn to, that you're like, hey, I noticed this, that I didn't see under Rob Thompson? The lineup is the same. In fact, he went back to Boehm in the 4-hole. So the lineup has not changed. Let's not say, hey, he did this to the lineup or he did that to the lineup. It really hasn't changed the lineup all that much, if at all. I don't really know that there's any discernible difference to the lineup. The pitching staff is the same, other than he got Wheeler and Thompson had Taijuan Walker. That stinks for Topper. And, Topper had an Alec Boehm who was hitting in the hundreds, and Mattingly's now got an Alec Boehm that's hitting about 400 in the month of May. Topper had a Stott that was not producing at all. Now Stott, in the month of May, leads the majors in RBI all of a sudden for the month of May. So there's not a lot of changes to the lineup. There's not a lot of changes to personnel. What is different about this team? Hit me up on the Whitehorse RV text board, 609-403-0973. We've got a lot of text messages coming in, but keep them coming, 609-403-0973. What are you guys seeing when you watch these games that you notice that's different about the Phillies with Don Mattingly versus Rob Thompson? 20-game sample size, very small. But 16-4 is 16-4, and Mattingly deserves credit for that.
To me, Mike, the biggest discernible difference has been plate approach. I don't think it can be overlooked the fact that when Harper and Bohm and Stott and Marsh until his recent struggles, but also Justin Crawford, when these guys are at the plate, they're not swinging at balls constantly out of the zone. They're being more patient. They're being more grounded. They're making contact instead of just trying to hit long balls. Bryson Stott even said after the game last night, he said he didn't think it was going to be a home run. He saw it go up. He's like, well, this might be a double. I better bust my tail to go to second base. They're not trying to hit home runs. And that's one of the things with Schwarber, too. Schwarber is just making great contact right now. So to me, the discernible difference is these guys are no longer swinging at pitches they shouldn't. They're having way more discipline. They're being way more balanced in their hitting approach.
We saw it last night, 5 walks from Lodolo, so that you saw it on Sunday with Skeens. They got him out of the game with 97 pitches, much more patient approach. But, there's so many things that this way can go, and I see the text messages coming in on the White Horse RV text board, 609-403-0973. What stands out about the way this Phillies team has turned it around? Is there something that you're noticing that just, wow, that's different from what Rob Thompson's teams did? Because I've always said the things that you don't notice, that's where the manager matters a lot to me. A lot of people blame the manager for, well, why are you hitting Bohm in the 4-hole? That's stupid. That's not the manager generally. That's generally a collaborative effort with the front office. And by the way, Rob Thompson's hitting Alec Bohm in the 4-hole too. Is he an idiot?
Well, that's why I go back to, I don't look at the manager at all in this. I see what the players are doing on the field. And by the way, you could argue that the reason why Andrew Painter is pitching better is because of the 2 outings ago when he didn't pitch well. Because of the fact that he went to Mattingly and said, I want to stay in this game. I want to get another inning out of this. Because Painter wanted to figure out what he was doing wrong and rectify it. So I look at the players, Mike, and I say, these guys are acting like adults instead of children and saying, you know what, I got to be better. I got to approach this better and do more to help my team be successful.
Well, those are the little things that I talk about where the manager does have a factor is how is he handling each individual guy? Now, the one part about this that I find to be interesting is that Mattingly was here. So it's not like they brought a guy in and he's completely different.
Correct.
This guy has been here, so it's like he probably had these relationships. Now, he is the manager versus just the bench coach, but you're still Don freaking Mattingly.
Right.
All this stuff of like, well, he played and he was this guy and the respect. That guy had been sitting right there the whole time. Were they not utilizing him to the best? I don't know how to answer that question.
And that's why I say to me, I think it's like you said before. And this is not the first time you've said it either today. You said it before as well, which is the players looked around and be like, you know what? We liked Rob Thompson, and we got him fired. We need to be better.
Yeah, but you know what? It's easy to say we need to be better and then actually being better. I might want to be better, but what if I'm not? Like if I go up to hit and I'm hitting 230 and I say, I don't want to hit 230. I really want to hit 300. That doesn't mean I'm magically going to hit 300 because I said I want to do it.
No, but are you going to put in the work to get there?
And that could be a fair question. Are they doing something different that we're not seeing that got them to this point? Because I don't know that would just all of a sudden start taking shape immediately.
Did you know who is still here? The hitting coach.
Yeah, Kevin Long is still here. And look, they still have nights where they're maddening. They go up and down. They're all around. Let's see what the White Horse RV text board says. Luzardo has 4 quality starts. Will he get number 5 tonight? But that's kind of wrapped into this. The quality starts from the pitchers is a 2-pronged thing. Quality start, less taxing on your bullpen. Now bullpen's more effective. We're seeing that across the board. The night where Nola couldn't get out of the 3rd inning or 4th inning, they had a fresh bullpen so they can get him out of the game. There are times where Taijuan Walker would have to stay out there and take one for the team because the bullpen had been short from the day before, or you knew that Andrew Painter's pitching the next day and you're not wanting to tax your bullpen because you need guys for the next day. So it's like, hey, I kind of need you to go out there and take one for the team here. So the quality start number is gone way up with Mattingly. And quite frankly, Mattingly has come out and said it. I don't know anything about pitching, so I don't know what to tell you. I mean, he literally verbatim said, I don't know anything about pitching. Can you imagine if Rob Thompson came out and said, I don't know anything about pitching?
He'd be eviscerated.
Absolutely eviscerated. That being said, Caleb Cotham, maybe he now has a little bit more hand on the pitching. Maybe he has the ability to, and listen, a lot of this is a collaborative effort before the game. Hey, we don't want Painter to go any more than 7 innings tonight, or we don't want him to throw any more than 80 pitches tonight. Steve says, they look more relaxed, more defined bullpen roles, Mattingly pushing the right buttons 90% of the time. The relaxed and defined bullpen roles, I think those are fair. The pushing the right buttons. Look, you only push the right button if the result is what you want it to be. You could push the button. If the result doesn't turn out, it doesn't mean the button push was the wrong button. It just means the guy didn't get the job done. But so far, when you push a button and the guy performs, it makes you look like, we see this all the time, you look like a genius. In 2022, in the Phillies' run to the World Series, Rob Thompson was pushing all the right buttons. And then in 2024, 2025, when he's doing some things and they're not working out, you're like, this guy's pushing all the wrong buttons. So it helps when the players perform when they're put into a position. Andrew in Summers Point says, why do we think that they couldn't have had this turnaround with Thompson? They're playing bad teams. Give me Braves or Mets, and then I'll buy in. Well, the Mets are the worst team in baseball, Andrew. Braves, different story. Now, to that point, Andrew, we're going to see the Phillies play the Padres, who are in first place, 29-18, and the Dodgers, 29-19. They have a stretch of games coming up where they play the Padres, the Dodgers, and then the Padres again. That will definitely give us a lot more insight on what this might look like. FedEx Frank is checking in. He says, I think you can give Mattingly a little credit. Bottom line is they're playing better, and now the manager was the only change. I think that's a very measured thing. I definitely agree. I think Mattingly definitely deserves some credit for this. You can't just say he has no credit, much like, everything. The manager doesn't get all the blame or shouldn't get all the blame, and he shouldn't get all the praise. I think he has a minor role in the good and the bad, and I think that's where Mattingly is here. He has a role in why this team has played better. I think it lit a fire. It put things in perspective. It refocused the team that I think the message was very stale on. That is where I think it has made a big change. And I said, listen, I didn't think Thompson was a good manager, a bad manager. I thought he was pretty insignificant. What I thought Thompson was good at was the players' personalities matched his personality. He's a very laid-back guy, and I think the players like that. The problem with playing for a laid-back guy, at some point, that needs to change. They took on his personality, and I think his personality got him as far as it could have. Got him to a World Series. It got them a couple division titles. Got them a lot of wins. But I think ultimately his laid-back personality began to kind of bring them to an apex. And that's where they need it. And now Mattingly's very laid-back too, but I just think the act of getting rid of him was the shakeup that changed a lot of things. They're still a very laid-back bunch. The manager is very laid-back. But I think it was just the motion of you're out and you're in, which kind of changed some things up in that clubhouse.
They also might be a game interview last night.
I saw him talk about Bohm and, him hitting the home run there.
He Stott dropped an F-bomb during the post-game talking
Missed that one.
McCarthy and Kruk.
Oh, I didn't see the on-field one. No, I
on
saw
the field.
him
No, on the field. Yeah, Nuggets and I were texting about it last night.
Bats are working. It helps to have a career 300 hitter with Mattingly's presence as your manager. I mean, respectfully on that one, Mattingly's presence was here. It's not like Mattingly just magically showed up. He's been here the whole time.
And what happened in 2020? You had a former player in Joe Girardi. You fired him. Thompson took over. You went to a World Series. So what does I would like to understand the perspective of the presence a little more.
Yeah, I mean, the presence of Mattingly is, to me, a weird one because he was already here. Are we insinuating that Thompson muzzled Mattingly and he was not allowed to give any insight as the bench coach?
Like he was a token position.
Like, you cannot teach anybody any hitting tips. I don't want to hear anything from you. I just want you to sit there with your mouth shut. Like, seriously? That's why this is such a bizarre thing that Mattingly has been here. So those type of things, I don't understand. Like, he couldn't have worked with guys as the bench coach.
Right. This is not like the rumors they were trying to go get Alex Cora, right? Dombrowski called Keller like, "Hey, do you want the job?" No, like it's not like you brought something completely from the outside when been here for the last few months.
Paul in Millville, this one's interesting. He says it's time to say that Castellanos was right about Topper. I don't think that's the case at all. We may not have liked the mouthpiece, but the message went clearly stale. But that's not what Castellanos was saying. Castellanos' problem was he said he couldn't respect the guy because he didn't play in the majors.
Right.
Had nothing to do with his message being stale. I don't think the other players viewed Thompson in that matter.
And can I just say really quick, I've seen this narrative going around about, the Castellanos was right thing. There was nothing that Castellanos said that had any weight except for the fact if you didn't like Rob Thompson already, he just added fuel to a bizarre fire.
Paul from Millville goes on to say the clubhouse earlier in the year looked like it was going through the motions and comfortable. Definitely agree with that. I think they got a little stale messaging that, I think guys are like, there's a lot to this. Team loses over and over. They hear the messaging, not good enough, and then they don't go out and get more pieces. And I think they got to spring training kind of like we can just kind of sleepwalk our way through the regular season again and try one more time. And I think this time they got cold clocked. Right? I think they got punched in the face. Like, no, you can't just sleepwalk your way through the regular season and think it's a rite of passage to get to the playoffs. Paul from Millville goes on to say, what I notice as the biggest difference is that the starting pitching finally showed up. Agree. He goes on to say the starting pitching has the ability to hide how ugly the offense can be at times. Agree. He goes on to say, but at the end of the day, the Phillies are like the Sixers. Nothing matters until they get past the finish line as the world champion. I would agree with that. A lot of people look at that. But here's the problem. I think the players looked at it the same way. We have to get to the playoffs and perform. Problem is you got to play to get to the playoffs. And I think this team just thought it was like a fait accompli that they were going to make the playoffs because, hey, we're the Phillies. We got Bryce Harper and Schwarber and Turner and our pitching, and we're just going to bully our way through the regular season. Well, you don't exist in a vacuum. Other teams around you got better. Clarence from Delaware. He says, Mike, comma, he should have wrote comma, but there is no comma, but it's Mike. It's Clarence from Delaware. He says, the game is fun to them again. They weren't having fun getting criticized and not taking accountability. Well, guess what? That's their fault. Play better. Ryan in EHT. The Phillies are the same team they've been, a batter short. Funny how up until this run, everyone has been trying to run everyone out of town that was possible. Now you have the same station saying, do we owe DD an apology? What is that? They're the same team. No, I don't think Dombrowski gets an apology for anything. I don't know what you're talking about with who's saying that. I never said that. That's ridiculous. This team is still short. They're still a batter short. They're still... I think they need a batter. I think they lack depth. I don't know why Dombrowski would get a apology.
Dombrowski probably deserves blame for not letting Thompson go sooner.
Got a good club.
Got a good club.
Not a great World Series championship level club. I think they're short of that. Text the show. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. We got so much more today, including Frank's Phillies mailbag. Phillies Fastball, of course, with Oscar and Jeff at 3 o'clock. Adam Aaronson has an interesting article up at phillyvoice.com asking about Tyrese Maxey. We'll get into that. What can the Sixers do this offseason? Dave Gallagher, 9-year Major League Baseball veteran, joins us at 5 o'clock. Always good to talk with him. I want to see what he thinks has changed with 20 games under Mattingly's belt. That's all still to come. This hour of the Sports Bash, it's brought to you by the law offices of Craig A. Altman, proud sponsors of Philadelphia sports coverage.
Listen, when you get an injured at work, a car accident, just any kind of accident, slip or fall, you need to make sure that you go in with a game plan because the insurance companies, their plan is to delay, deny, and pay as little as possible. So who's on your side? That's why you need to call 856-327-8899 for the law offices of Craig A. Altman. They have the tough lawyers who can handle the tough cases. They know how to put pressure on the insurance company, and you don't pay anything unless they win. So don't hope for the best. Go into it with a game plan. Offices in Vineland and Delsey Drive. That's the law offices of Craig A. Altman, backed by a Philly law firm that knows how to win. Visit them online at CraigAltmanLaw.com.
When we come back, Phillies mailbag. If you have a Phillies question for Frank Klose, pop it in now. 609-403-0973 on the White Horse RV text board. 2:32 Sports Bash this hour brought to you by the law office of Craig A. Altman. Phil's tonight against the Reds. Good pitching matchup tonight. Not Lodolo, he pitched last night. Luzardo, I was going to say, for the Phillies. And Chase Burns is going for the Reds. Burns 5-1, 1.87 ERA, a whip of 55 strikeouts in 53 innings. Phillies got their work cut out for them tonight against Chase Burns. They did win last night against the lefty Lodolo. Frank's Phillies mailbag. What are some of the things that you guys are asking in the mailbag this week? Let's bring Frank Klose in to the Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN for his weekly mailbag, answering listener questions live on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN as Memorial Day weekend approaches. There's Frank. What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Mike?
Always good. And by the way, for everybody out there listening, don't forget tomorrow, watch the Phillies with us at Ventnor Social. We will be there for the Phillies day game tomorrow at Ventnor Social. Stop on out and see us, and you can enter to win a trip to go to Baltimore to see the Phillies play the Orioles. Let's get into the mailbag questions here. Let's go right away and get into this one. Anthony wants to know about trade candidates. Isaac Paredes from the Padres, or excuse me, the Astros are going to nowhere. I said the Padres. I meant the Astros. They're going nowhere. Feels like he would be a perfect fit. And right-handed bat. The interesting question I want to see your answer is because he plays a position that's kind of catching fire right now.
Yeah, he really does, but I think it's fair to say the Phillies need some roster reinforcements. They've had 3 catchers on their roster right now. That's not something you can do forever. I understand they kind of needed that for a while because JT Realmuto was coming back off the injury and you want to make sure that he's fully healthy. But that's an extra roster spot they're going to need to fill. And the Felix Reyes, Otto Kemp spot, that's certainly one that the Phillies can improve. So, of course, right-handed bats are going to be of interest to the Phillies. Now, Isaac Paredes, man, the Houston Astros, they've had a really bad year, a lot of bad luck. It's just been one break after another. And the latest is that Jose Altuve, perennial all-star, he strained his oblique on a home run of all things, and he will be out for weeks. They just can't seem to catch a break. And so probably if you look through the Astros roster, Paredes is one of their main trade candidates on that roster that could help another team. So I'd say he's underperforming a little bit this year so far, but he's a 2-time All-Star. He can play third base, can play second base, can play shortstop. He has not played in the outfield in Major League Baseball. So I understand some of the idea that he might not be the perfect defensive fit. But, I think the Phillies could really go for somebody like him, another right-handed bat to mix in. I mean, the Phillies have been playing Edmundo Sosa in left field some. Maybe that leaves extra room in the infield for Paredes. That I wouldn't put Paredes out there, but maybe Sosa could do a little bit more of that. But I'd like to see that depth. I mean, one of the things that happens now at the trade deadline, unlike before, there's no real way to add anybody unless it's a waiver claim. No more waiver trades down the stretch like used to happen, like that brought the Phillies Scott Air and Matt Stairs in 2008. Can't do that anymore. So adding some depth, adding some extra right-handed bats, even if you have to play some mix and match to make it happen, I think that's a really, really good idea. Yes, the Phillies have players at those positions performing really well right now, but someone gets hurt for a little bit. I like the idea of adding the bats. So I think that's a very interesting name to keep an eye on. My one question would be, what would he cost the Phillies? Or if the Phillies have the ability to add a right-handed outfield bat, perhaps maybe that would make more sense. But I think that's a pretty good name brought up by Anthony.
One thing on that I'd like to further on is he plays third primarily. He said second, some short. Has Bohm turned it around enough where before it looked like you were ready, everybody was ready to ship him out and find someone, and that was the guy that you need to replace. I know people don't love Bohm in the 4-hole, but he has turned his season around immensely here.
Yeah, that's fair to say, but I think that that's why you want some depth around. I mean, can you count on Bohm to be this through the rest of the way? Can you count on Bryson Stott to be this the rest of the way? I don't know that if you can't confidently say that, get some more reinforcements in.
All right, let's get to the next question from Brian. He wants to know, what can the Phillies do about Brad Keller? Now, it's an interesting question because I do agree that Keller has been a disappointment. 2 years, $22 million, but it seems that Mattingly has kind of settled into him in this seventh inning. Alvarado's been pitching the eighth. I imagine they'll switch if there's lefties up in the seventh as opposed to the eighth. But Brian thinks there's a problem with Keller. Do you?
Yeah, he's been probably the number one disappointment, I would say. Aside from that 10-game losing streak and the 9-19 start, Brad Keller is probably the biggest disappointment on the Phillies so far, and I realize that's kind of saying a lot because, 2-year deal, big money for a reliever who's not a closer. But yeah, you're right. They expected him and Jose Alvarado to team up to get those late outs, whether it be the seventh or eighth inning, depending on who the opposition is coming up to bat. But, I will say this about Keller. His numbers aren't completely terrible. It's a 4.12 ERA, but it's not what you would expect out of your eighth inning reliever at times, right? Or your seventh inning reliever, depending on the matchup. So, with a lot of baseball left this year, I would actually move to give Orion Kerkering some more opportunities. Now, Kerkering, pretty good so far this year, 2-0 with a 2.16 ERA. I prefer Kerkering to have a clean inning and not have runners on base when he comes in. I definitely think that he's better when he's got the empty bases. I'd give Kerkering some opportunities. I try to put Keller into some lower leverage situations because, to me, Keller's command is off. So you don't want to see him come in and give up that home run to tie the game, right? Or to which has happened a couple times. Phillies rally back, take a lead. Who was it? One of those games in Atlanta or Chicago, I forget which. Or maybe it was in Chicago, right? Because he was facing his old team. He seemed to blow up the lead just like that. So I would give him some lower leverage opportunities, try to work on that command a little bit. That might be something that he can indeed recover. And then, mix Kerkering in a little bit more. And although, if we're being honest, they brought in Keller so they wouldn't have to have Kerkering be in that role. But I think Kerkering has stepped it up enough that you're seeing a little bit more out of him. He seems very recovered off of what happened to close the season last year. Give Kerkering some more opportunities. He might be your longer range solution there anyway. So mix him in some, get Keller into some lower leverage situations, get that command back. That's what I would be doing right now.
All right. We started the show today by asking a question that Jeremy kind of loosely asked. He says, what has Don Mattingly done that has made Alec Boehm and Bryson Stott suddenly good?
Yeah, this is a fun question because, all of a sudden the calendar hit May and both of them have been doing really, really, really well. So, Alec Boehm, 345 in the month of May, 953 OPS, 3 home runs, 8 RBI. Then you look at Bryson Stott, 254 average, which looks lower, but he's got an 890 OPS and 5 home runs and 18 RBI. I believe he's leading at some point last night. I don't know if it's still true. He was leading baseball in RBI. But this really does have a lot to do with why the Phillies are surging. They've been really good in the month of May. Now, look, I think you can give Phillies interim manager Don Mattingly some credit for sitting Boehm for a couple days, getting his head clear, telling him not to pick up a bat. Stott didn't have that. He did get to sit against some lefties, but of course last night he did start against the left-hander Lodolo. So I think if we're talking about the firing of Rob Thompson, that was really meant to be a wake-up call to the players, right? You can't fire the players, so you fire the manager, you try to shake things up a little bit, and I think that they realized at that point they were that close to a benching. I mean, you got to the point where Stott, we were talking last time we were at Ventnor Social, we were talking about how, hey, maybe it's time to bench Bryson Stott. Well, he's kind of closing that conversation, talked about how, maybe Alec Boehm can't demote him because of the contract situation, but do you bench him? What do you do? We were having those conversations, but I think it's really good that, of course, good they're performing now. I'm not totally surprised. I mean, we talked about plenty of times about how both of them are real contact hitters, and it just didn't make sense that they weren't making the types of contact that they were before. So, look, I think I said this last week too, but looking in the rearview mirror, the fact that they didn't do well in April doesn't matter if they can play well to the end. So I think if they're going to be productive, they're going to be in good shape. They're probably not going to surge forever, but it's kind of nice to see that them finally contributing something to the story of this 2026 Phillies team.
Well, I wonder if it's a case, I was talking about this, Frank, see what you think, is the fact that they've been hearing so much that you ran it back, you didn't make the move, and that the team kind of sleptwalked the opening of like, we know we can make the playoffs. It's whether or not we can play well in the playoffs. They got punched in the face. It's like, hey, it's not a fait accompli that you're just going to make the playoffs. Like, you actually have to come out and perform, and, they got off to a slow start, and the eye-opening experience was you got manager fired.
Yeah, and look, the offseason, I didn't like how the offseason went for the Phillies. I mean, the fact that they pursued Bo Bichette so heavily and even thought they had him, that sends a message to the Bohm. That sends a message to the Stotts on the roster, right? I
you would have hoped it sent a message, though, that would have got them get off to a much better start than they did. Like, oh, man, they tried to replace me.
Right. Well, I think the message was you're not good enough, and maybe they've started to believe it. I mean, I could see that happening, and of course we know Bohm had all his personal issues with his family going on too, but yeah, they basically openly said that Bichette wasn't good enough. I mean, Bohm wasn't good enough, and because they were pursuing Bichette, so I think you had to get past all that noise. I think that's far enough in the rearview mirror at this point, but getting Bohm that reset, I think was indeed a little bit helpful to him. But this isn't. We were just talking about Paredes. I mean, I think you still wonder how consistent they'll be the rest of the way. I think that still is a worry. So I still would look to add a Paredes or somebody like that.
Well, you definitely need another bat on the bench. There's no question a guy that can, now Kemp, can he fill that role? The problem with Kemp and younger guys filling that role is they're not used to that role, so then they don't play enough. Then they struggle when they do play, and then, it becomes a problem. We've talked to Dave Gallagher, he'll be on today, is when you are the right-handed bat in the platoon and you're not playing all the time, that's a tough role to get used to, and Kemp's a young guy. They want him to play every day. He went down and played every day. Now he's not going to play every day. How does he handle that? So we'll see. Couple quick questions coming into the White Horse RV text board. Frank, do you think it's time to move Nola to the pen? He's not going to start in the playoffs anyway. I can't imagine they're going to do that.
No, I can't imagine it. Look, Nola obviously is not what he was. I know we keep hearing a lot about the contract given to him at this point. He's just got to pitch better. I mean, they're paying him to pitch better. He's got to pitch better, and they don't really have a lot of other options. So 2 starts ago, Nola looked like Aaron Nola. The last one, he was scuffling again. So he's got to pitch through this, and he's got to figure out how, whether it be diminished velocity or diminished command, he's got to figure out how to pitch through this.
Well, I guess it's an interesting question, though, when you think about the way the Dodgers used their bullpen last year. Can Nola possibly be utilized in a bullpen role come playoff time so that he does have a role?
Yeah, that's a little bit different, but for right now, I mean, it's not like they have anybody else to slot into the rotation. So he's got to make these starts. He's got to pitch better.
Well, what'd you make of Gage Wood getting promoted? What's the messaging there?
I think he's closer than one would think. He skipped right over Jersey Shore. So they see something there. In fact, I think it's really good. I'm going to try to get and see him in Reading sooner than later. Now that he's there this quickly, but I mean, I think he's somebody who can move fast. I mean, he did pitch through college. He's an older. In fact, when they drafted Nola, speaking of Nola, they drafted Nola kind of thinking he would rise through the system quickly because he had the college experience, and Gage Wood could be in a similar situation. Now, I don't know that he'll necessarily make the major leagues this year, but certainly if he's a Double-A now, there's plenty of time for him to rise to Reading. So, I mean, clearly they thought there's no challenge for him.
This is the way I kind of look at it is, if Nola continues to struggle, there will be some mysterious injury that pops up and get him away for a couple starts. Wood gets the call, and, he gets the opportunity to show if he belongs or not. If he pitches well, maybe they put him into a bullpen role, and when Nola, something to that effect. But I think he will be a factor this year. Alex in the Villas. Let's get one more on the White Horse RV text board. And, of course, these are listener questions, so, Frank, you didn't get a chance to see any of these or anything. But he wants to know, who's your perfect trade candidate, realistic and unrealistic, for the Phillies?
Barry Bonds at his prime, unrealistic? No, I don't. Geez, I don't
Well,
know.
Usually the answer to that is Mike Trout, right?
I don't even know if he would be my ideal. But, Trout having a good year again, so that's good to see. Realistic. I think part of the problem is you don't know yet. There's too many teams that are in it, right? And other teams that were scuffling early, some of them have vastly improved. So I would have a really hard time trying to figure out who the right-handed bat that could have some power and hit fourth is for the Phillies, because not a lot of them exist in Major League Baseball
It's
right
crazy.
now.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit tough here, but yeah.
Well, you think about it and text me, all right?
Yeah, I will say I've been trying to answer that question for months, and I don't really
Right.
have a good answer because
Well,
anybody that does fit the bill is accounted for.
Yeah. By the way, it's not Nick Castellanos who was hitting 198 for the Padres. So
Definitely
not
not.
him. We know it's not him. All right, Frank's Phillies Mailbag is back every week right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. You can get your questions on social media at Frank Klose with a K, Klose, and, of course, on the White Horse RV text board, 609-403-0973. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, Frank's back again next week on the Sports Bash with the Phillies Mailbag. You can be a part of the show, as always, on the White Horse RV text board, 609-403-0973. All right, coming up, Phillies Fastball, we're going to get into Gage Wood. We're going to get Oscar and Jeff's thoughts on 20 games of Don Mattingly, and we're going to get into Alec Bohm and Bryson Stott. What are the guys seeing from those two guys? That's coming up in 12 minutes. Stick around. More Sports Bash on the way. All right, Sports Best Live, 97.3 ESPN. Hey, my guys at Clark's Moving and Storage down in Rio Grande. Let me tell you, big move. If you have one coming up, I got great news for you. I got a friend. Don't ask your friend. Ask my friend at Clark's Moving and Storage, 609-889-0780. Your friend, he don't want to help you move. My friend, that's what he does best. Clark's Moving and Storage, I used them. I didn't call my friend. My friend would have said, go bleep yourself. But my friend Clark's Moving and Storage, they got it done. They got it done. They did everything I asked on time, professional, move it here, put it there, and it was the best move I ever made. Because asking your friend to move, that's how you lose friends. That's how you lose friends. Call Clark's 609-889-0780. Online, clarksmoving.net. They're an authorized agent for Wheaton Worldwide Moving, so they can move you across the country or even around the world. All right, coming up, Phillies Fastball today with Oscar and Jeff. We're going to take a look at Gage Wood. What's his promotion to Reading signify? Alec Boehm and Bryson Stott. The daycare all grown up all of a sudden. Can we believe in those two guys? And what do we make of Mattingly after 20 games? What kind of impact does he really have for this team? Hey, don't forget, tomorrow we're live at Ventnor Social, and this is your invitation. Come on out, watch the Phils against the Reds with us. We'll be there 2 to 6, live show, hanging out, watching the Phils, talking Phils, and you can enter to win a trip to go see the Phillies play the Orioles at Camden Yards. Just stop on out, fill out the form, and hang out with us. The Sports Best live tomorrow. Ventnor Social, 6417 Ventnor Avenue in Ventnor. All right, 3 o'clock this hour of the Bash. We got Phillies Fastball brought to you by Veteran Social. We'll be there tomorrow. A little Phils and Reds tomorrow. Stop out and see us. Watch the show live. And you have a chance to enter to win a trip to Camden Yards to see the Phils and Orioles. They'll play a game at Camden Yards on July 31st. One lucky winner will be there. Maybe it's you. Stop out tomorrow and see us. That's your only chance to win. Actually, it's not your only chance to win. We'll be at Veteran Social tomorrow. We'll be there again on June the 4th. So you have 2 more chances before we give that away on July 29th, and you can come out July 29th, enter and win as well. All right, Phils win last night, 16-4 over their last 20. What has changed about the Phillies? We're going to get into that. We'll get into Gage Wood. We'll get into a bunch of different things. First, the lineup is out for tonight's game. Turner, Harper, Bohm, Marsh, Garcia, Stott, Sosa, Crawford, and Marchand. So a couple things. Schwarber is out. He is sick again. Turner is DHing. Sosa's playing short. Marchand is catching. So Real Muto's out. Schwarber's out. And you got Turner as the DH tonight. So Harper's back at first. Bowman's back at third. That's your Phillies lineup. They win last night with about the same lineup. They had a little bit different there. No Marchand last night. But I want to start with Oscar because we talked about some of the ways they've been winning. Let's start with you, Oscar, today. What about how they won that game last night stands out?
Yeah, look, Schwarber was not in the lineup. I mean, to start off, we were all, what's going on here? I mean, it's a lefty, Lodolo. I mean, are they giving him a day off? And he was a little bit under the weather, and you win a game without Schwarber. That is big news for the Phils. And look, you had both. You had 3 major guys contributing yesterday. Andrew Painter pitching 6 innings. I mean, that is a huge win for the Phils. They needed to have him kind of. He didn't have what I would call a great performance. I mean, the results was fantastic. I mean, he only had like 3 whiffs in the entire game, so that was a little concerning on that end. But look, he did what he needed to do, 6 innings, and then you have the home run by Baum, the home run by Stott, and those guys are like. Look like the Schwarber and Harper in the last few weeks. So they've been incredible. And look, you win. Those 3 guys gave you the win yesterday.
Jeff, what about Painter last night? Because Don Mattingly said after the game that he could have pitched him in the 7th. He decided not to because he wanted his bullpen to take over the game. So Painter goes 6, and then it's Keller, Alvarado. Kirkring came in for the 1 out, and Duran. But we're starting to see what he likes his bullpen, Keller, Alvarado, and Duran. But Painter, would you like to see him go out for another inning?
I actually admitted to this to someone on X who mentioned that, and I said I would have put him back out for the 7th. But I understand what they're doing. They're playing this long-term game with Andrew Painter. They're slowly building his confidence up. They did the last start. They did this start. He was only at like 68, 69 pitches. That's why I thought he would come out for the 7th. But I get Mattingly's reasoning. They took the lead in the 6th inning. So, okay, let's go to the guys that we're paying. Brad Keller, Jose Alvarado, Ryan Kirkring if he was available, Johan Duran. Let's play to win this game. And it kind of got screwed up because Brad Keller decided to give him a home run in the 7th.
Another home run.
Well, it's evident, guys, that's his blueprint. He looks at Keller, Alvarado, Duran. If we can get it to the 7th, they think the game is over.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And look, Keller's been bad at home. Let's not sugarcoat it. I think his ERA is over 6 at home. That's something that needs to get fixed. I didn't think Jose Alvarado pitched bad last night. He let some pitches get away, but I mean, if you're looking at the grand scheme of things outside of the double, I was like, okay,
including the ABS system. I mean, a strikeout. I mean, they called the LBS, and it was a ball, and it was a base on ball. So. Look, Alvarado has been okay. He has not been as dominant as I would really like. I know that Mattingly's playing him up a little bit, which is fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. Look, Kirkring has been the most consistent reliever this this bullpen has had, together, of course, with Durant. Those are, to me, right now, those are the two go-to guys, and I'm glad he brought it Kerkering when he brought him.
I do too, Oscar.
Let's look at a couple things in the game from last night. Obviously, Schwarber was out sick, so he's not in the lineup, and we have Bohm moving up to the 3-hole. He's a story here, Oscar. I want to get your take on Bohm, and then Stott, a guy who's starting to come around big time as well. Talk a little bit about those two particular players and the impact they're having on. What I want to talk about after this is this 20-game span where they are 16-4, but you're not 16-4 without these two guys right now.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and this is what you see from them over the last 10 games. I mean, we have a stat up there and a slide there over the last 10 games. I mean, Alec Bohm is hitting 405 with 7 runs, 6 RBIs, a 1.166 OPS, which I found it amazing, with a 436 on base percentage. If this guy can do this on a consistent basis, we're going to the World Series. I mean, that's as simple as it gets. I mean, if both Bohm and Stott do the 166 and the 881, look, I was looking. One thing that I try to do is I look at trends and I look at their careers, right? When you look at Alec Bohm, he's a 735 OPS guy, and during the season he's at 604, which is significantly below. But over the last 2 weeks, he's at 1142. So look, the reality is he's not a 1142 OPS. He's not a 604 OPS. The history says, after all the years he's played, that it's a 735 guy. So he's somewhere in between. The same thing with Stott. He's below average. He's at 97 in when you look at the quartile, he's at 97% of all the players in Major League Baseball at a 700 OPS. 927 over the last 2 weeks, 904 the last week. Look, they're going to be coming down. There's no doubt in my mind, but you got to run. I told you this before. The most important thing with this lineup that has flaws is you have to take advantage of those guys that are hot and try to explode them as much as you can. And he's done that with Bohm, bringing him primarily fourth. He was third yesterday because Schwarber was out.
Well, the one big thing, too, is, and Jeff, you can comment on this, they're coming up and doing things, Bohm with a home run, dead center field, Stott with a monster shot last night. They're showing a little bit of power in big moments as well. I agree with you, Oscar. I don't think Bohm, he's been scorching hot. One of the problems with Bohm is he doesn't generally hit for power. But if he can, gap to gap and be that guy, the question is, can you continue to, big picture, can you win with him as your 4-hole hitter? I think we talked about this yesterday. You can't. But Bohm and Stott, if you got them hitting 6 and 7 or 7 and 8, now if they're hitting like this, that adds a lot of depth to this lineup. That's
one thing I've liked from what I've seen out of these two. And Oscar goes by weeks. I go by the month, right? So Alec Bohm is a 935 OPS in May. That's your career OPS is. So that's helping. But he's helping in the 4-hole. And look, he's quietly been moved up to the 4-hole because Adolis Garcia is struggling. But before that, he was hitting in the 5-hole. He was hitting in the 6-hole, mostly the 6-hole. Bryson Stott's been hitting in the 6-hole and the 7-hole. It seems like they finally got him to where he needs to be in this lineup. And you're getting contributions from the middle of the lineup because of those two. And it's not just them. Like, look what Justin Crawford's been doing this month at the bottom of the lineup. It's those three are helping out Schwarber and Harper, and that's why this team is being able to score runs, and they're in the top 5 in runs per game and top 5 in OPS this month.
Boom, 9-game hit streak, second longest active streak in baseball, guys, 429, 5 multi-hit games during that span, and the Phillies keep on winning. They are 16-4 under Don Mattingly, guys. Let's look at this 20-game sample size. What do we attribute it to? Some people will say, hey, the manager. Hey, guys are playing better. Hey, the pitching. It seems to be a little mix of everything. But what do you guys make of why Mattingly has got this team 16-4 in this 20-game span?
I think it's a combination of things. On one end, you see kind of somebody that has played like they have at a star level, which is what Mattingly did his career. So that's going to put some significantly more pressure in some of those guys. Look, this guy was a player like we did. Topper was not. The second thing is I see them paying more attention to detail. I think there were some things that were taken for granted. I mean, you see kind of the infield practices, not everybody coming out. You see a lot more pressure on this guy. And then the last thing I would mention is the accountability. They know that Rob Thompson got fired because they did not perform to their expectations. Do they perform how they're capable of doing? Now they're doing it. And look, you're riding the hot hand in Baum and Stott, and you need to ride it as much as you can. Hopefully Garcia and Turner can get hot. Those are the two guys that need to step it up from a lineup standpoint.
Yeah, this team did not quit on Rob Thompson. That's just a bald-faced lie. They did not quit on him. They just underperformed, and they felt that, and they all admitted that look, we let this guy down, and they wanted to keep Kevin Long. They all like Kevin Long. Well, you're seeing why they like Kevin Long, and Rob took the fall for it. But look, the starting pitching got better. Like Oscar said, you got guys not hitting under 600 OPS. I'm sure that's helping a lot. And look, the bullpen's been better too. It's a combination of pretty much everything. The only guys who haven't really hit since Rob Thompson has been let go are Trey Turner and Douglas Garcia. And JT Realmuto's been struggling too, but he's also 35 years old. It's still better to have him back in the lineup. But to me, it's the starting pitching. Like, you're getting Zach Wheeler's back. You're seeing what you're getting out of him. Christopher Sanchez, Andrew Painter has been better his last two starts. Jesus Luzardo has been mostly Jesus Luzardo throughout this trend. I look, that this team is just playing the way we know they're capable of playing. This 16-4 stretch, I'm not saying they're going to go 16-4 through the next 20 games, but this is more of a team that should be going 13-7, 14-6 for long stretches of time, and they're not as bad as 9-19, but they're not as good as 16-4. If that makes sense.
And pitching is the name of the game here. I mean, look, out of the last seven starts, only the Nola start was a bad one. The other six have been 6 or plus innings, except a Painter one, which was a 5 inning that they took him out early. But they've been amazing. I mean, those 6 out of 7 starts at this level, you're going to win a lot of baseball games.
This team only has lost one game. This team has lost one game when the starter goes 6 innings. I think they're 17-1 now or something like that.
Yeah, one of the things, listen, my take on the manager has kind of always been, listen, the manager's there to kind of set the culture. Do they like playing for him? Do they, are they excited to go to the ballpark and play for their manager? I think Thompson, they did like Thompson. They wanted to play for Thompson. I also thought that maybe after the way they lost last year, you couldn't change the roster, that maybe they should have changed the manager. That doesn't mean the manager was good, bad, indifferent. I just think they needed a new voice, and the way this season started, I think it was very apparent. Do we think Mattingly handles things differently? Well, the lineup looks very much the same. Does he handle the bullpen differently? Does he make pitching changes differently? I'm not so sure about that. I think each game kind of has a different feel to it.
I think the difference is what people aren't seeing. Right? Not everybody can be in the clubhouse. Not everybody can watch pregame on the field. It's the bullpen is doing everything seemingly together now. The hitting, they're focusing more on the little things, like fielding. Yeah. Like, I think they've only had like 3 errors since Don Mattingly. That's not a coincidence, by the way.
Mattingly talked about
another component. I mean,
Mattingly talked about that yesterday. He said, look, there were plays before we weren't catching the ball, now we're catching that ball. Or now, and then the other team would capitalize on us not catching the ball, and now we're making that play. So there's little things, and people will look at it and say, have they cleaned that up because Thompson wasn't as attention to detail? I don't know. I mean, you're there, Jeff. You get to see them pregame. Are their routines different? Are things different that are making a difference? I don't have that information.
Yeah, some things are different. I've had players tell me some things they wouldn't go too much into detail, but things are different. I mean, you can just observe it. You don't even have to ask players. Like, I know Justin Crawford's getting more time working in center field. I know Don Mattingly is talking to Bryce Harper at first base. He's talking to Felix Reyes at first base. He's over discussing things with Trey Turner. He's out in the outfield a little bit. He lets Caleb Cotham really manage the pitching staff. I think Rob Thompson was a little more hands-on with the pitching, but Don Mattingly's like, look, that's not my forte. I was a hitter, so I'm going to work with hitters, and I was a good fielder. I'm going to work with that. Caleb Cotham, you can manage that. I think that's what you're seeing. I think Anthony Contreras is really helpful to the young guys as the third base coach. I think Dusty Watton being a bench coach now, he could be more involved. It's little things people are. So that's where in my mind, coaching does make the difference. But the fact that it was said on an airwave yesterday that the players quit on Ron Thompson. That's just wrong.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. I don't think the players quit on Thompson. I do believe, look, the reason he was called topper is because he was on top of everything. He was put in that role. So he had, I think there is two things, right? When you're studying, one thing is do everything by the book, and another one is doing in practice. I do believe what we're seeing here is the difference between kind of doing everything you need to do by the book versus going out there and having the experience as a player and being able to be with the hitters, being able to go into the field and feel with the guys. It's a very different dynamic, and that's what you're seeing here. I mean, you see, and a different voice. Look, the decision was the right decision. At the time, we did not like it because of what Topper had done for this team and what he represented. But look, it is the right decision. You're playing
and
at
look,
an 800 ball. I mean,
and Don's very open about stuff. Like, and again, it's like just how he handles the media. He's going to give you a long answer, especially if he likes you on certain things. He notices like certain trends that are going on. Like a couple weeks ago, I asked about Alec Boehm. I said, look, Alec Boehm got high in May last year. He made a couple changes to his swing. And Don basically said, I'm actually going to look into that. And so here we go.
So one of the reasons for the turnaround is Jeff Kerr's question.
That's what it is.
I doubt that. But when it's your first week on the job, remember he wasn't here last May, so he's still trying to figure out some things.
Yeah.
I think now he's got kind of a pulse of what he wants to do, and I think Cotham has that pitching staff locked down. Like I always thought the pitching would have that positive progression. I think we all admitted that it was, and we knew the hitting wasn't going to be as bad, but. What was the ceiling here? I think the ceiling, they blew through that over the last couple weeks.
Guys, Reds have lost 3 straight games. They're 4-13 in May. Tonight it's Burns and Luzardo. So the Phillies have a good chance to get another win tonight. They have the advantage in the pitching matchup. And by the way, earlier today, it was announced by the Braves, Drake Baldwin injured, and that's a big loss for them as the Phillies now close within 7 games of the Braves, and they have a chance to win another game tonight. You would think they have the pitching matchup with Luzardo against Burns.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, I mean, I do believe that we have a big advantage there. Luzardo, hopefully we get the best version of Luzardo. And you see the changes here, right? Right now, the Phillies are 20th now on runs per game. You see the ERA going down to 19. Remember, we were at 28 3 weeks ago. And the pitching performance that we've had primarily with our starters and our relievers remaining consistent. We're now 19th in baseball at 421. I do believe we have a great chance. I mean, look, this team now is you got to take advantage of these times right now. Look, we were playing when we were 9-19, we were playing at a 32% win rate. Right now we're playing at an 80% win rate. The reality is to win 90 games, you got to play at a 55% win rate. So look, the reality is that there are going to be it's the waves that this team is, you got to ride the waves. And right now we're in a great wave, and let's take advantage of it. Like being in the water like a surfer.
One thing I want to reset before we get out of here on Phillies Fastball today is Gage Wood. A big story happened yesterday that we didn't really dive into too much on yesterday's Fastball segment because Wood goes from Clearwater. He bypasses Jersey Shore and goes right to Reading, guys. Jeff Kerr, what's the message?
Well, there's a couple messages here. One, Reading's trying to put all their young talent together. The Phillies are purposely doing that. So it didn't surprise me Gage Wood went to Reading. But here's what I'm curious about. Will Gage Wood be on this team at some point this year, or is he going to be trade bait for somebody? Like, is he the trade bait? Because you got to look at this, right? Aaron Nola ain't going anywhere. Andrew Painter ain't going anywhere. So, the other 3 aren't going in. So there's really no room at the end for him. I mean, yeah, I guess you could say if Aaron Nola keeps pitching bad, Gage Wood can come in and help that. But you're silly in that contract. But Gage Wood is the guy. He's like Mick Abel. It seems like there's a short shelf life there. But if they don't trade Gage Wood, and I think they will for a right-handed bat, at least right now.
Interesting.
Then you have to wonder, where does he fit in all this? Is he going to be in the bullpen? He wants to be a starter. Does he want Will they put him in the starting rotation and stretch Painter? There's a lot of alternatives at play here, but I'm really excited to see him in Reading with that offense and see what he can do because they're playing a lot of these young kids together for a reason.
All right.
When you look at his what he does, he looks more to me like a reliever with that fastball that he has, kind of his 2-3 pitch stuff. He looks to me more like a reliever, like a closer, than he looks to me as a starter at this point. He might want to be a starter, but the reality is who he's going to be in the majors. And I agree with you. He might be a trade bait here, and the move to Reading is to basically kind of a showcase to see what he's capable of doing.
That's interesting. I agree a little bit with a little thing from each of you guys. You know, him coming up here, he could be trade bait. He could also be that guy if somebody gets hurt. They need to groom somebody in case somebody got hurt.
That's the other cat. That's the other thing. This
you can't call him up from Clearwater right to the majors, most likely not. But you can now say, hey, we need you to be the next guy in line in the event that Aaron Nola comes up with some mysterious ankle injury or, something to that effect. They need to have somebody
It
that
feels
they can
like
move.
2007. Remember when Adam Eaton was struggling in 2007? They moved Brett Myers to the bullpen, and all of a sudden they were thin in the starting rotation. They didn't really have anybody. Remember, the AAA affiliate was Ottawa in 2007. And they call up this kid from Reading, Kyle Kendrick, right? Not really he definitely was not a top prospect like Gage Wood, but he was ready. Charlie Mangle and the Phillies brass, Pat Gillick especially, thought he was ready to go. And Kyle Kendrick got them through that season and earned his spot in the rotation for that. Maybe that's Gage Wood. Maybe if Gage Wood impresses in a muff starts in Reading, you have to make a decision.
That's what I would say. He goes up, they give him trial by fire here, and if Nola continues to struggle, he probably comes up with a mysterious injury, and they move Wood into that spot. That's the other thing, though, Oscar. I do agree with you. I think he profiles better as a bullpen guy, but you got Duran here, you've got Keller, you've got Alvarado, you got Kerkering. Where does he fit into that bullpen this particular season? Is he the trade bait guy? I also look at this. We always talk on this show about how many left-handed bats they have. Rincones, left-handed. Nori, left-handed. Do the Phillies look at those guys as, hey, there's just no room for more left-handed bats here. We're going to push hard to trade those guys at the deadline.
I think there's room for Nori. I'm not sure about Rincones.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Rincones is probably not as much as Nori does have. Escobar is a very interesting. I think he was a trade bait before. Now with the whole dynamic with Adam Miller, he might not be. We don't know what they're thinking in that respect.
Last year at this time, Oscar and I were like, "Oh, Escobar will be traded at some point. Maybe not last year, but this year." Now I'm like you, Oscar. I don't think they should. I think they need to keep him around.
Yeah, I mean, he's your top infielder prospect outside of Adam Miller.
I got a Jeff Kerr trivia question to end the fastball today. Who leads the majors in RBI in May?
Bryson Stott.
There you go. Bryson Stott is your MLB RBI leader. Who would have guessed it? Only Jeff Kerr on the Phillies fastball. Oscar, there you go. Jeff Kerr with all the trivia you need. And by the way, Chase Burns, this guy's been outstanding this year for the Reds.
Good.
I said the Phillies have the pitching advantage tonight. I might be wrong about that one. Burns has been really good. Luzardo, Burns 193 ERA. He has 7 strikeouts, only 1 start. Against the Phillies. But 5-1 this year for the Reds, and he has an ERA.
This has been a tough series for the Phillies in terms of pitching. Like Andrew Abbott's no slouch either.
Yeah, 187 ERA this year for Chase Burns, a whip of just 1 and 55 strikeouts in 53 innings. So a tough right-hander tonight for the Reds against Luzardo for the Phils. Phillies fastball tomorrow. We'll be back. Oscar, Jeff, good talking Phillies with you, boys.
Go Phils.
All right, guys, we'll have those guys back. Tomorrow we're going to do a Phillies fastball post game. So the guys will be on tomorrow after the Phillies and the Reds. So sometime tomorrow night we'll do Phillies fastball around 5 o'clock after the Phillies-Red game is complete. It's a day game, and we'll be at Ventnor Social, which brings you the Phillies fastball each and every day on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Stop out to Ventnor Social tomorrow. We'll do Phillies fastball tomorrow at 5 o'clock after the game is over, and enter to win a trip to Baltimore to see the Phillies and Orioles live at Camden Yards. Yeah, you know what? You know what helps a turnaround? Bryson Stott leads the majors in RBI in the month of May. I mean, you talk about pushing the right buttons. Hey, Bryson Stott, you want to drive 18 runs in 18 days? That'll help. Alec Boehm has been out of his mind here, hitting in the month of May. The Boehm numbers in the month of May. Josh, you ready for these numbers real quick on Alec Boehm? I don't think people realize how good Boehm has actually been in the month of May. You ready for these?
Well, I know his batting average over 300.
It's over 300. It's 345 for Boehm, 390 on base, 564 slug, 953 OPS, 3 homers, 8 ribbies. Boehm has been on an absolute tear in the month of May. And those are things that, voila, help you turn things around. All right, coming up, Adam Aaronson on the Sixers. Should they move on from Maxey? He wrote about this at PhillyVoice.com. Hear what he has to say coming up next. All right, 3:33 Phils tonight. We gave you the lineup for the game tonight. Now, we take a look at the Sixers. Adam Aaronson, great job covering the Sixers this season. Dust has settled. Who will be taking Daryl Morey's spot? I want to get into that a little bit, and he writes an interesting mailbag this week over at PhillyVoice.com. Is trading Tyrese Maxey this summer a crazy idea? Let's bring in Adam Aaronson right now. At Sixers Adam is where you can read the article from PhillyVoice.com as he joins us now on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. You know, a lot of people look at this team, Adam, and say, hey, they got Maxey and they got Edgecombe, and then they're kind of stuck. But is trading Maxey an outside-the-box possibility that they should actually think about?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure I would even call it an outside-the-box possibility as much as I might call it an outside-the-box idea, because I don't think that it's much of a possibility. I think the Sixers look at Maxey as one of, I think we would all agree, Maxey and Edgecombe are probably the only two members of this organization with a positive approval rating in the city. And I think what has served as sort of a calming presence for fans here, even the ones that are, dismayed by what has gone on with Joel Embiid and Paul George and wish the organization could wash their hands of, these overpaid veterans, is that we have this backcourt locked in here for a long time. I think that's the mentality that a lot of Sixers fans have. And I think trading Maxey, who has been the most stable and consistent part of an organization riddled with instability and inconsistency, is probably a non-starter just from an optics perspective. And I don't think it would be necessarily advisable either, but I do think it's a really interesting thought that one of my readers suggested to me, just because could you imagine how much this team could get for Tyrese Maxey in a trade right now? And, so I went and I looked at, other trades that have been made in the recent history of the league that are somewhat similar analogs. Desmond Bane last summer, I think everybody would agree, not as good of a player as Tyrese Maxey, though a very good player, went for 3 unprotected first-round picks, a pick swap, another first-round pick, 2 players. Mikal Bridges, definitely not as good of a player as Tyrese Maxey. 4 unprotected firsts to the Knicks, plus another protected pick. Even Donovan Mitchell, who might have been considered at a slightly higher level in 2022 than Maxey is now, though it's probably pretty similar. 3 unprotected picks, 2 unprotected swaps, 3 players. One of those had just been picked in the first round. Another, Lauri Markkanen, became a star-level player immediately after that trade. The Sixers could, in theory, get a tremendous haul in exchange for Maxey, pair that with the 20-year-old Edgecombe, and all of a sudden have a really impressive collection of forward-looking assets. The question is, though, could you actually make enough of that to be worth, all of this is equal to more value than a 25-year-old, for now, guard who can play on and off the ball, who has become the unquestioned vocal leader of the locker room, who has become a fan favorite and a tremendous sort of front-facing face of the organization. I don't think it's something the Sixers will even consider in the near future, but I think what I would sort of clarify to people who will rightfully be repulsed by the idea is that I think trading Tyrese Maxey would not be a suggestion that he is not good enough. It would be that the Sixers are not going to be good enough to maximize him over the remaining 3 years of his contract, and a statement of, because he has risen to such a high level of player in this league, you could, in theory, get a tremendous haul for him. But again, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it should happen. But I do think it's an interesting thing to think about. And if the Sixers, continue to sort of lose their grip of championship contender status and Maxey gets closer to his contract expiring, then it's going to become more of a conversation.
After watching the NBA Western Conference Finals last night, one would wonder, should I just punt the next 3, 4, 5 seasons and try
punt
to...
the next 15 years until Wembanyama retires.
Well, right. I mean, at some point you would think maybe he slows down, gets hurt, or something happens. But, man, after watching that, it's disheartening to think about what the next at least 3 to 5 years might look like with those two teams.
Yeah, that was one of the highest level basketball games I can ever remember watching. And I just, I pray for the teams that are in the Western Conference. And I think that everybody should be, the Minnesotas and the New Orleans of the world that are in the Western Conference, but could make a case to move. I think should be working on their PowerPoints right now as they try to make a case to the NBA potentially with expansion and realignment coming to go to the Eastern Conference. Though, to be fair, that might just delay the inevitable by one round. It's really unbelievable the not just star power, but depth and cohesion and youth that both of those teams have. Again, they are not just two of the best teams in recent NBA history. They with two of the best players in recent NBA history. There's no reason that this should, stop growing at any point soon. They're going to just continue to get better. And it's hard to see this series not being sort of an annual event this time of year, which, based on how last night went, I'm not sure who's objecting to that at this point other than, the rest of the Western Conference.
Yeah, that was a very awesome game last night. Wembanyama wins that game, an epic performance, one for the ages last night, and it kind of makes you think about what is the future of these teams? Like, what are they trying to build towards when you're looking across the ledger there? But Maxey would get you a haul. I guess the question I would ask for you, Adam, is do you look at a Maxey Edgecombe backcourt as a winning backcourt?
Yeah, I think that could be, in theory, a backcourt that leads a good to very good NBA team, depending on how good they can both get and what the rest of the roster around them looks like. Is it a championship level backcourt? I'm not sure. I struggle to think that because I don't think either of those players are going to get to the true, 1A on a title team caliber of player. But that's not exactly the right way to think about it all the time. I think, if you actually look at the history of the NBA, you'll see that there are a lot of teams that keep sort of running up against it. And it's like, oh man, this team might win a playoff series every year, maybe even two, but they're never going to win at the highest level. And it's become sort of in vogue to just suggest that teams blow things up and make changes. But after one or two, playoff exits that were earlier than hoped, sometimes those teams actually do break through. And so I never want to rule anything out. And I really will never put anything past Maxey and Edgecombe, not just as players, but as the people that they are and the way that they work and the way that they compete and the way that they both seem to have, a flair for the dramatic and the ability to rise to the occasion in big moments. So is that going to be the foundation of a team that wins a championship? Probably not. But could that be, the pairing that leads the Sixers into, the late 2020s, even the early 2030s, and be a foundation that they can build around and be a successful, consistently competitive NBA team? I think so. I think both guys are great players. I think Edgecombe clearly has significant room for improvement, even after, one of the better rookie seasons in recent NBA history. And I look at both guys as, they fit together. They have a great relationship. There's no reason to expect that will change at any point soon. So as far as building blocks go, you could do a lot worse than having 25-year-old Tyrese Maxey and 20-year-old VJ Edgecombe.
Yeah, there's no question about it. So let's get your take on what's next for this team. I put out the other day, the best combination would be if Morey and Myers could actually work together. Morey has found a propensity of drafting pretty well and finding guys in the draft. Myers, not so much. Whatever Myers did in Golden State, they missed on a lot of draft picks. They had the number 2 pick. They missed. They had a 7 pick, Kuminga. They had other, higher picks that they didn't really hit on. He was kind of handed Curry, Thompson, and Green. He does win 4 championships, so he has that gravitas. But what's the right kind of guy that can come in here? Because I think Morey's drafting has really helped this team over the last couple of years. Now, some of the decisions made, Joe, McCain, and et cetera, possibly hurt them. But what's the perfect blend for you?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think you're right, and I think even the harshest critics of Daryl Morey, and there are many very harsh critics of him, would acknowledge that the Sixers have had a very successful run at the draft in his 6 years in Philadelphia, and Bob Myers acknowledged that. He said that at his press conference with Josh Harris last week. Like, I don't want to get in the way. And right now, the Sixers have their entire, front office and scouting staff still in place, just with Bob Myers at the top of the ladder in the interim while he leads the search for a new leader. So we'll see exactly how many changes come to the front office after the hire is made, and will any members of the Sixers' current front office regime be candidates to step into the chair that Morey previously occupied? I would generally be looking more at, if I were in charge of the search, I would not be thinking as much about someone whose track record shows that they can, salvage the last couple of years of the Paul George contract and the last 3 of the Embiid deal and try to keep you as competitive as possible, and then figure out what happens with Maxey and Edgecombe down the line when you cross that bridge when you get there. I'd be looking at someone with a history of strong drafting, an eye for player development, potentially someone young who has not been in this role before. That's always a challenge because so much of front office, hires way harder than coaching hires even, which is not easy either. There's just so much guesswork involved. You never know exactly who's responsible for what decision in each front office across the league. You never know how somebody is going to fare as the lead shot caller until they're actually in that chair. You look at, Arturas Parshanovis was thought of for years as this incredible high-ranking executive with the Denver Nuggets, and I believe he worked somewhere else as well. A guy who has been in a well-run organization can carry that over into, a franchise that needs direction. He goes to the Chicago Bulls. It's a complete disaster for years. I thought there was going to be a parade in Chicago when they fired him at the end of the season. You just never know. And so I struggle to give an emphatic, like, this is the guy or this is the right person for the job. I think that having a forward-looking approach with this hire and thinking more about, the 2030s than the rest of the 2020s, it's easier said than done to actually pull it off, but I think that should be generally what the Sixers' approach is here.
Talking with Adam Aaronson, the Sixers, the draft will be here before we know it. Obviously, after the finals, it's only a couple days after that ends. I know in the interim here, have you thought in your head, we all who cover this league and enjoy this stuff, I've been on the trade machine punching things up. If you come up with any Embiid or Paul ideas in your mind that you'll keep an eye on leading into the draft?
I have not come up with anything on Embiid. I really struggle to imagine that there's going to be another team that's willing to take on 3 years and almost $200 million on his contract when he just does not play in enough basketball games. He has not played even 40 games in each of the last 3 regular seasons, and he is confident that is going to change. I have a story coming out tomorrow at Philly Voice, in part explaining why he thinks that, most people would assume it's going to be the opposite. He's going to continue to trend in a bad direction, why he thinks his health might improve and his availability might increase next year. But that's going to be a really tough bet to make if you're an NBA franchise, particularly given how restrictive the new salary cap environment is. And because it is basically impossible to compete in any serious way if you have that sort of financial commitment to a player who just does not play at a reasonable, rate. And so I really struggle to imagine that. I would have had almost the same sort of feeling about trading Paul George in January when it was, he's going to have 2 years, $110 million after this season. He has looked nothing like the 9-time All-Star he is since he got to Philly. Then the way he played after his 25-game suspension was lifted, the way he played in the first round against Boston, even after sort of tailing off in the second round against the Knicks like everybody else did. I could see a world where he gets moved. I still think it's very unlikely. As far as specific deals, I've struggled to come up with one that I think is a foolproof idea that if I were both teams, I think would be completely advisable. I think you could look at, one team that I think maybe is interesting here is Brooklyn, just because they have a ton of financial flexibility. They could look at it as, they have Michael Porter Jr., who shot the lights out for them this year, played an expanded offensive role relative to what he had done in Denver. But then, are the Sixers going to have the assets to not just pay what it takes to get Michael Porter Jr., but also what it takes to get off of the Paul George deal, which I still think would be considered a negative value contract, even if it's not quite the second worst deal in the league behind Embiid, like I thought it was previously. I don't know. There are some other teams that have some financial flexibility. It could be of interest. There's, Golden State has tried to get Paul George before, I believe multiple times. There's every indication they're going to continue to try to find another star-level player as they try to compete around Steph Curry, sort of last-ditch effort to win another championship with him. But I just struggle to actually find deals that make sense. It's a lot easier to find fits in theory than it is to actually find frameworks of trade that make sense when you've got, a $55 million player who, again, is also not himself all that good of a health bet. It's not the Embiid situation, but Paul George has missed his fair share of games over the years, including each of his first 2 in Philly.
Well, we'll keep an eye on the offseason as Sixers Adam on Twitter. Follow him, Adam Aaronson, PhillyVoice.com. He's got some great stuff, coverage for this offseason. And check out his piece on the mailbag with Maxey and some, obviously, some candidates for the Sixers front office role over at PhillyVoice.com. Adam, we'll catch up soon, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
Always a pleasure to catch up with Adam Aaronson, covers the Sixers. And, of course, the Sixers offseason will be underway. Before we know it, we'll be all over it here on the Sports Bash. All right, coming up, we will get into football at 4. Adam Caplan is here. And also next hour, the Nuggets and Dave Gallagher, former Philly, 9-year Major League Baseball veteran. What has changed in the last 20 games under Don Mattingly? We'll discuss. All right, 3 o'clock hour brought to you by our friends at Broadlee's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Broadlee's a trusted source for heating, plumbing, service, installation. Call 609-390-3907, broadlees.net. Coming up, football at 4. Adam Caplan is in the house today. We'll talk a little Eagles and football with him. We're going to dive into the biggest strengths for the Birds and where do they have the biggest question marks for Adam. They have mini camps next week. So the first opportunity to start to look at this roster starts on Tuesday. And, of course, full coverage on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, Super Bowl in 2030 has been awarded to Nashville. So it will be L.A., Atlanta, Vegas, Nashville. And a little birdie tells me London could be on the way. Remember where you heard it. More Sports Bash coming up. Football at 4 powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, brought to you by the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, the best place for game day, including the Knicks tonight against the Cavs. You can check out all the action at Ocean Casino Resort and the Fanatics Sportsbook. That's where I watched the Rousey fight on Saturday night there, Josh. We were up there watching the MMA cards, and it was a good time. Great venue to watch all the sporting event. You know, the key thing is they have the sound on, which is something that is big. Right now, it's time for football. Adam Caplan is here. And, by the way, next week, the Eagles will be back on the field. What can we find out? Well, we're going to look at some of the biggest strengths that they have leading into really, Adam, their first time back on the field. I guess this is voluntary stuff, but most of the guys should be out there, and it'll be really the first time we see them since their last, the last outing in the playoffs.
Yeah, Mike. Actually, a week from today is the start of the OTAs, and we don't expect A.J. Brown to be there, by the way, who just got married. But that's not why, because we expect him on June 2nd to be a Patriot, barring a shock. I would be shocked if he's not a Patriot, but we'll find out soon enough, Mike. But look, let's look at the strengths and weaknesses. That's kind of where we're at here, this football team. Because again, a week from now, you're gonna start seeing it. Reporters will be able to see one of those practices. Like 20 years ago, they still let us all in, but now they limit us to how much you could watch. But the strengths, Mike, they're on both sides of the football. It's not just one side. Defensive tackle, to me, it's a strength where I don't see a weakness at all, because you know who your starters are. Ojomo, Davis, and Carter, they play a three-man front. They're a 34 front with two overhangs. Byron Young was a great waiver claim. I got to tell you, I still don't know what the heck the Raiders were thinking when they cut him 2 years ago. He didn't really play in 24, but he wound up helping them in 25, and he actually wound up being a really good story of development. And then they're going to look at Ty Robinson. This is a big offseason for Ty Robinson, a fourth rounder out of Nebraska last season.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of the strengths they have elsewhere on the field. One spot I think was a question coming in until draft night when they got Jonathan Grenard would be an edge. And this one, they went into last year thinking this was an area where they didn't need help, then quickly made a couple additions with Zadarius Smith and then Jalen Phillips. So is this an area of strength now?
Like, they didn't have the depth that they have here now. So here we go. We've got Grenard. Then on the other side, you have Campbell/Nolan Smith. They'll get that figured out who's going to start in training camp. Arnold Ebiketie, they're paying about $4 million. Okay, so he'll be their fourth edge. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, a former first rounder with Tampa. And they've given him a little bit of guaranteed money, not very much. They've got Keyshawn James Newby, who was a seventh rounder this year, so almost certain not to make the team. Wayru, the international player. And also, U.R. Bernard, obviously, is going to play defensive tackle. He was actually drafted, but he got he's getting the exemption because they're going to take it along solely with him. But the bottom line is, Mike, they have very good depth. I'm really looking forward to the Smith-Hunt really good training camp challenge there. And Ebiketie's a guy the Eagles have always liked, and that's a pretty good group there, Mike. And remember, Vic Fangio, they may dress for, but he's shown he really only likes playing three.
Yeah, I know that last year they thought they had this, and then they had to go out, and then they went out and got Grenard. So we'll see if Grenard and Ebiketie are better than what they had at the start of last year. They're definitely better than when the season started, right?
Oh, yeah. No, Mike, they have much better depth. There's no question about it, because someone's going to be the odd man out between Smith and Hunt. We didn't know how good Hunt would become. And Smith is, he's got to kind of rebound here. Yeah, they picked up his fifth-year option. But, if he could have a great year, you never know what could happen in terms of getting a contract extension. And Jonathan Grenard's a guy that's coming off of his shoulder injury and surgery. He'll be good to go, certainly, by training camp. And we're looking forward to seeing what he can do with his football team in this Fangio scheme.
Who do you like better, Grenard or Phillips?
They're completely different players. Phillips has got, he's got a lot to him because of the size, but he's not the pass rusher that Grenard is. Phillips has had the major injury history. He's a little bit younger than Grenard. Honestly, and Grenard, remember, he got his contract adjusted. They're guaranteeing this year and one more. But they're going to save. Look, they're going to save cap space and cash with the Kennard deal. Phillips would have cost them. Look, they weren't going to do $30 million. They just weren't going to do it. What we don't know is what was their final number. There's been a lot thrown out there, and I don't believe any of it's really totally correct there. So I know they would have paid $25 million. Would they pay $28, $29 million? Don't know that.
All right, let's look at another area of strength for the Eagles. They have Jalen Hurts. They made some trades. They still have Tanner McKee. Yep. Quarterbacks on the list. Yeah,
this is a strength. Look, Jalen Hurts, you can say what you want. Been in the Super Bowl twice. He got the MVP in 24, where, quite frankly, he was better in 22, where he played out. It's probably his best game as a professional. This is a new scheme for him. You and I have talked about this, Mike, many times on Football at 4, and our show, obviously, Jeff and I have on Inside the Birds. But, yeah, and Tanner McKee, last year was rookie deal. Then you've got Andy Dalton, who's the third-string quarterback. So if they trade McKee, that opens it up. Dalton would be the 2. Then Cole Payton, their fifth-rounder, can make the football team. But they're not looking to trade McKee, to be clear here. They're not. We know that for a fact. But
they would if they got a deal they like.
It would have to be great. Yeah, it would have to be a great offer. Look, they understand, Mike. They understand the value of having a quality backup quarterback. They learned this the hard way with A.J. Philly when Coy Detmer got hurt and McNabb got hurt. I mean, you can't have enough quality quarterbacks. So they're in really good shape there. It is absolutely a strength. There's no question the quarterback position's a strength.
All right, let's go to another spot on offense, which I think might be surprising to people. What about tight end?
Some people may not agree. I know Goddard, from a blocking standpoint, was not as good as he had been in the past. It wasn't like he's terrible. He just had dropped off that area. But their offensive line, as you know, Mike, was not a strength last season. It was a shocking weakness. We didn't see this coming. Nobody did. They got to get back to health. We'll talk about that later. But the big thing is, Mike, Goddard's back for a year. They got brought in Eli Stowers as their second-round pick out of Vanderbilt. They're going to bring him along slowly. They've got Johnny Munt to be their blocking tight end. They got that settled. Kem Latu was a good story. We didn't like the way that they schemed their tight ends in the run game. We thought it was bad. That's going to change here with Chris Cooper. It's a new offensive line coach. We'll see how much it changes, but it's going to change for what we understand. And they got Daquan Wright. I know they're excited about the undrafted free agent out of Mississippi. So, Mike, this is actually could be a very strong strength here for this football team.
All right, and then one, I guess, outside the box. What about one of their special teamers?
Yeah, you know what? Braden Mann, we actually talk about him. We drop our final depth chart intel show tomorrow when we talk about safety, but we briefly talked about the strengths and weaknesses of the football team, and we said, like, did anyone think punter would be one of the few strengths last year for the 25 Eagles? It was. Braden Mann was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. The reason why he wasn't a Pro Bowler is because there were a couple of guys that were better than him, and there not many, but he had a great season. He really did, and he got his new deal. Good for Braden Mann. And, look, he's a good football player and a heck of a signing he was. It's one of those situations. I know the Steelers didn't know what they wanted to do with him. Then they wound up cutting him, and he's been a really good signing for them, the Eagles.
All right, Football 4, Adam Caplan is here, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms. Those are some of the strengths. Let's look at some of the question marks as the Eagles get ready for minicamp on Tuesday.
Yeah, OTAs, right? Next week, where we're going to see Chris Cooper, their O-line coach. He is. I'm including in the questions or positions of questions. I'm including Chris Cooper, the O-line coach. He takes over for the semi-retired Jeff Stalin. Who knows? After his contract expires with the Eagles, he could be coaching somewhere else next year. Who knows? But the bottom line is things are going to change. It's a brand new scheme. He's got to learn these players. The players have to learn him. This is a big thing for me, Mike, for the voluntary camp and then for the mandatory camp, which is the biggest one by far of the offseason when everyone's got to be there. They all have to get on the same page.
All right, let's look at, you got the offensive line coach, obviously, a question mark. You got a completely new guy. He's been here since 2013, so that's the first time there's a new guy there. You've had a new offensive coordinator every year, it's seemingly, since 2013.
Yeah, you got a new play caller here. It's new scheme, new play caller, Sean Mannion. Only in his third year coaching, Mike. This is a big step up for him. He ran a quarterback room for one season. Now he's calling plays in this market with this football team, with the success that they have, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Sean Mannion. No question about it. And he brings in this timing-based offense. He's got to get on the same page with his quarterback.
All right, and there's a lot of reports out there, obviously, people looking forward to what this offense, completely different than we've seen, and we've always kind of said, is it going to have any influences from Nick Sirianni? Expect it to be completely different than what we saw. What about the new quarterback coach? This is an interesting one because, Scott Loeffler, he worked with Hurts in the offseason here. That's a little odd. He's spoken on some podcasts recently. So what's different here?
All right, so Scott Loeffler, this is what we reported at Inside the Birds at the point he was fired. He was told he had a job depending on what the new offense coordinator wanted to do. So I don't understand the move with Parks Frazier. I understand he's a smart coach. Interim OC with the Panthers. We're actually under the Colts under Jeff Saturday, the then interim head coach. And look, the Eagles like him. Sirianni knows him. They were together with the Colts. I get that, but Parks Frazier's never run a quarterback's room. He's been an assistant quarterback's coach, but he's never run a quarterback's room. That to me is a question mark. It's got to develop. I know he's very smart, and he's been with Hurts. He knows. I mean, this is going to be challenging. I'm really looking forward to seeing, and we'll listen and see what happens with the two of them working together now.
I think one of the biggest questions this year has got to be, you mentioned the offensive line coach, but what about his offensive line?
Yeah, Mike, getting them back to health. Dickerson, obviously, major health question mark. Juergens with the back issue, and he sought help, as you know, overseas. And Lane Johnson, coming off of his major injury, what does he have left? Mailata was the best out of the group, but he even dropped off a little bit. And then Tyler Steen was healthy last season. He was very average. So overall, Mike, it's health. Are they in a regression? This is a major question heading into their offseason and obviously the training camp.
All right, a couple more biggest question marks. OTA start Tuesday. What about the spot opposite Quinyon Mitchell?
Yeah, right cornerback with Tariq Woolen will start with his $12 million fully guaranteed. That's not up to debate. What the question is, can he play quality football? As we noted, Mike, many times on the show, they actually were very open to trading with the trade deadline, and they didn't trade him, and he wound up winning a Super Bowl with them. They weren't going to bring him back, as I was told. So he signs a one-year deal. It's a high-end prove-it deal, no question about it. But as we suspected, the Eagles were not going to draft a cornerback. They were going to go with Woolen. They went up signing Jonathan Jones to back up Woolen. So if Woolen winds up getting benched, meaning he doesn't play well or he gets hurt, soon-to-be 33-year-old Jonathan Jones would be his replacement. I'm a little bit concerned opposite Mitchell, to be honest with you. Is it better than last year? Yes. Dory Jackson was average at best, but Woolen is way younger, doesn't have the injury history. But Tariq Woolen, after a great rookie season, has been quite frankly in a free fall.
All right, last one. Actually, a couple more. It's in the same room in the secondary here. Everybody knows safety's an issue.
Number one issue on the football team in terms of positional needs. Drew Makuba coming off the fractured ankle. As we discussed on tomorrow's show, Mike, which drops at 6 a.m., Makuba didn't just have the fractured ankle last season. He had a couple in training camp. You worry about that. Right now, that they have to figure it out opposite him. Right now, it would be Epps or Carter. Carter would be the guy, though, we think. But they're looking at a veteran safety. Whether it's they would prefer to sign one now. If they don't sign one, they could trade for one. They're going to add someone they believe by training camp. And then you got Cole Wisniewski, who's certainly not going to start. And J.T. Gray will only play special teams. And Andre Sam's there, who's a fourth safety at best. And Maximus Pulley had he had a pro day workout for Wofford, and the Eagles signed him off that. So it's wide open, Mike. The quality of depth is a major question mark. It's a big question mark going into the season. No, or certainly going to OTAs.
And while they have a strength at punter, what about the kicking counterpart?
I'm shocked, Mike. Now I understand we're in May, so let me revise that. I'm slightly surprised they're not going to. They could literally do it next week before they open it. But if they want to not bringing in a kicker to at least compete against Jake Elliott, I don't get it, Mike. I don't quite understand what they're doing, but
could be a money thing.
I don't know. I mean, he took a small pay cut. Not a lot, as I understand it. So I'm just kind of surprised that we'll see what happens as we get closer to training camp. I'm not completely sold that they won't do that. Because, boys, Jake Elliott's been in regression. Let's call it like it is.
All right, there's Adam Caplan for today's Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Check out the Inside the Birds podcast on all podcasting platforms. Thanks, man.
You got it. Thank you.
And Adam Caplan, of course, and Football at 4 is brought to you by our friends at the Fanatic Sportsbook. Football at 4, the best place for game day, Ocean Casino Resort and the Fanatic Sportsbook. Check it out for all the big games, including tonight's Knicks and Cavs. You got the Stanley Cup continuing on. Game 7 last night. Habs move on. Sabres are gone. Great games last night. A lot of synergy between those two games. I was locked in on the hoops. That game was epic. That game was an all-timer. That was an unbelievable game. Wemby, as we talked with Adam Aaronson in the last hour, you watch that game last night, you're probably thinking to yourself, what do we do? What do we do? I mean, that guy's here. Before we get to break, James Palmer was on the Up and Adams show. And that was this morning, Josh? He was on with Kay Adams this morning on Up and Adams.
Yeah, so Up and Adams, by the way, for those who don't know, the show actually starts at a later time now. I don't know if that was like a logistical reason, but anyway. So we didn't see some of this audio until a little bit later in the day than we used to. And so Palmer was on there, and, for those who don't know, James Palmer used to cover the NFL for NFL Network and now works for The Athletic. Mm-hmm. And he's actually a local guy, by the way. He's from the Philadelphia area. So he's pretty familiar with the Philadelphia Eagles and the nuances that go along with the team. And, even as you said to Adam, the assumption is that A.J. Brown is going to be gone and go to the Patriots, what Adam Schefter has been reporting for 2 months, right? Well, according to James Palmer, it might not be a guarantee that A.J. Brown goes to the New England Patriots.
We all know Howie Roseman. We know how Howie works. He can obviously be, I think we should, get the negotiations up and going. And they had negotiations. They haven't really had any, to my understanding, recently. But there's been some offers. There's been some talk with the Pats for sure. But if you think Howie Roseman for a second is not going to be calling every other team, and I mean not just taking calls, but making calls to other teams on A.J. Brown, I mean, you're a fool. This is the way Howie works. He's going to try to get other teams involved. He's going to try to see what the best options he can get for himself are.
Yeah, I'm indifferent on that one. I mean, has he not made those calls? Has he not gathered all the information? Or is he now going to remake all the calls? Or is he settled in here on the Patriots, knows what they're willing to get, and feels secure that he's getting that deal? So I don't doubt that Howie Roseman does all the due diligence, but has he already done the due diligence? Are you telling me that Howie hasn't already done the due diligence?
I don't think he hasn't done it, but how to settle with the Patriots when he can do one more round of phone calls just because.
Oh, I do think he will, yes. I think he will do one more round of phone calls just because. I think he might say, hey, I'm going to circle back before I call the Patriots. You had some interest before. Are you interested still?
So there's a new rumor that came out recently that the Jags could be interested in A.J. Brown. So Kay Adams asked James Palmer, can you clarify why this is a thing out there now?
Bananarama.
Jacksonville, there's been is Brian Thomas Jr. available? He's not available. Is he available? I've heard both behind closed doors, out in the open. Are they going to make some moves in terms of how that wide receiver room's built? If Travis Hunter's not going to be playing receiver as much, do you want to go and make a big splash? I'll say this: James Gladstone down there is he's kind of like Les Snead, where you have to have him sit on his hands. He's always looking to do something big. He's always looking to try to make a move.
Okay.
And at the deadline, man, was he trying to make some things happen at the deadline? And I mean big things. They didn't happen, but he was trying to make some big moves at the deadline. So I wouldn't put anything past James Gladstone down there in Jacksonville, and I wouldn't put anything past Howie in trying to find the best deal possible because the 27 draft is outstanding.
Yeah, listen, I think, the scene from draft day where you find the young GM that you think you can take advantage of? Wasn't that kind of like, hey, call the new guy in Jacksonville? And if you're Howie Roseman, do you think that you can – look, this is the team that won the division last year. This is the kind of trade, much like the Eagles made when they got A.J. Brown. You know, they won the division, though. The Eagles went to the playoffs, but getting A.J. Brown could put you potentially in as a favorite to win the AFC, right? So you call and see – if they are willing to be a little antsy and see if you can get a little more out of them.
And listen, if the conversation is, I get a first-round 2028 pick from the Patriots, or I get Brian Thomas and a 2027 second-round pick from Jacksonville, it makes you wonder a little bit, right?
Do you want the draft capital or the player? They drafted a player, so does that change the outlook? I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean,
I've been kind of on record by saying the fact that you're not getting a player to help the 2026 Eagles is a little perplexing to me, and that you don't get a pick until 2028 is also a little disheartening.
Well, maybe the other part of what Palmer said is part of the reason why they're not concerned about getting the players, because according to James Palmer, the Eagles think they already have a number one receiver in-house.
One player I would keep my eye on is Devontae Smith. What I have been told this offseason is he has been a man possessed about, I'm going to step into this number one role. Okay. Calling former receivers, asking them about different things this offseason. I had a conversation with Nick Sirianni where he was like, we've just scratched the surface with Devontae Smith. Like, I think we can do so much more with him in this new offense. We can do so much more with him. And then they have Wicks and they have Hollywood and they have, I mean, so they've changed their room for sure. And they truly believe Devontae Smith can be a one.
I think a lot of people have always thought that it's always been Brown and Smith. It's never been, well, we have Brown and then Smith. It's always been Brown and Smith. I think most Eagle fans have kind of looked at them as almost equals. Maybe they haven't been noted as such.
Maybe they have been
in
featured,
league circles.
Right?
Well, let's be honest. This passing game hasn't exactly been dynamic in their tenure here.
Sure, but I mean, how much of that is because you signed Saquon Barkley? How much of that is because of the changing of the offensive coordinators? How much of that is because of the quarterback? How much of that is because of...
Well, what I do think is it has nothing to do with the talent of the players that you had, Smith and Brown.
Mm-hmm.
You can, I don't know why it just flows better to say Brown and Smith, but if you said Smith and Brown, would that make you feel like Smith was the guy and Brown was the second? I don't know. I mean, I think it's more of just, it's always just kind of been the two of them together.
So that's where Palmer...
But real quick on that. The fact that they got Wicks and then drafted Lemon and they got Hollywood Brown, it kind of goes to what I was saying in the offseason before the draft, which is you look at Seattle with Jackson Smith and Jigba, they don't have a whole heck of a lot of, like, it's not like in Jigba and this guy. They have a bunch of just guys who now fill the roles. Cooper Kupp fills the role.
Rashid
Shaheed fills the role. He's the stretch guy. Kupp's the underneath guy. But no, none of them are anywhere near the talent that Jackson Smith and Jigba is.
So that's where Palmer kind of wrapped up, because Kay Adams pushed him a little more about, like, well, why would you even trade A.J. Brown? What is the reason why you would, like, doesn't this trade need to get done? You got training camp coming up in a couple months. You got mini camp next month. Here's what James Palmer had to say.
Howie has no timetable. That's the part of it here. Like, he is in no rush. Like, I mean,
so A.J. Brown's in training camp?
The start of the season. I think he's in a different uniform by the start of the season, but I think he doesn't have to do a deal at June 1, right? He doesn't have, like, there's deadlines are usually by money where certain things kick in, right, Kay? Like that, those don't exist really within this contract. So, like, he can kind of give it a couple weeks and maybe a month or two and see how this goes. But I don't think they're better without A.J. I do think what they noticed last year is that the frustrations and what was going on was starting to finally make its way onto the playing field. And that's when things get a little bit different in terms of where you are with a player that's disgruntled.
Well, all I think about when I see something like this is Ben Simmons with his cell phone in his pocket, those practices. Do I want to see A.J. Brown at practice if he doesn't want to be here? I don't think we want to see how that works out. Now, mandatories are coming up in June, right after June 1st. Will they make a deal immediately on June 1st and he's out of here, or will it go into the mandatories? Something to keep an eye on. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I'm going to reach out to my buddy Nick Cattles, who hosts the Locked On Patriots podcast. I want to see if they think it's a fait accompli that A.J. Brown is going to New England, or if these other rumors have any merit. We'll try to get him on maybe in the 5 o'clock hour. When we come back, Nuggets is on the way. Dave Gallagher as well. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Tomorrow we're at Ventnor Social. Stop out and see us tomorrow for a live Phils against the Reds. Phils tonight, it's Clark Burns and Jesus Lazaro. Great pitching matchup. You can enter to win a trip to Baltimore to see the Phillies play the Orioles at Camden Yards, July 31st. Time for the Nuggets now. Nick Earnshaw's back with today's edition of Nick's Nuggets on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. What do we got today? Man, there's a lot happening. What's going on, man?
Oh, there is tons going on. And I'm going to continue kind of the conversation you and Josh were having in the previous segment regarding A.J. Brown. So nugget number one, A.J. Brown. He got married. Good for A.J. Happy for him. But guess what, Mike? According to TMZ, Jalen Hurts, QB1, did not attend. Remember, Hurts is the godfather to A.J. Brown's daughter. They've known each other for a while, going back to high school, college, etc. Remember the FaceTime on draft night when A.J. was traded here. Not good, to say the least. Not good at all. So I want to replay a clip from that James Palmer up and Adams appearance, because I find this stuff interesting regarding AJ, the whole situation, how everyone's been kind of mute, but everyone kind of knows he's on the way out. So James Palmer was on Up and Adams. You guys played a couple of clips beforehand. I want to replay this. Palmer, he kind of explains how Howie Roseman, he's going to do what is best for the Philadelphia Eagles. Take a listen to what he has to say.
We all know Howie Roseman. We know how Howie works. He can obviously be, I think we should, get the negotiations up and going. And they had negotiations. They haven't really had any, to my understanding, like recently. But there's been some offers. There's been some talk with the Pats for sure. But if you think Howie Roseman for a second is not going to be calling every other team, and I mean not just taking calls, but making calls to other teams on A.J. Brown, I mean, you're a fool. Like, this is the way Howie works. He's going to try to get other teams involved. He's going to try to see what the best options he can get for himself are.
Huh. So that's interesting. You can look at this a couple of different ways, Mike. That they're trying to drive up the price on New England, on AJ, trying to get more out of them at this point as we get closer and closer to June 1st. Because, like I had mentioned before, Howie can just sit on his hands and wait. Or he actually is out there trying to maybe get another offer and just saying the heck with it. AJ, you're going here instead, because Howie has all of the control. Mike, what do you make of no Jalen at the wedding and all this stuff regarding the trade?
Well, the no Jalen at the wedding, I don't really care. That kind of stuff there.
You don't think it means anything? I think it means something.
Maybe it does. I mean, there's no question that they have had a fracture in the relationship. I mean, I don't need him not being at his wedding to tell me that.
He's the godfather.
He is the godfather. Yeah, well, I talked about before. There's a lot of people out there listening who have godparents, probably don't know who they are, never spoke to them. The godparent falls out of favor. Exactly. You had a kid when you were younger. You don't talk to that person anymore.
Cool.
You had a kid and you were friendly with your college friends. Now your college friend you don't see anymore. So the fact that Jalen Hurts is the godparent means Zippo. The fact that he wasn't at the wedding, it doesn't change anything here. I mean, how would that change them trading him?
Well, I'm just saying it goes into all the thing about everyone being mute, not talking about it. AJ really hasn't said much. Jalen hasn't said much. The Eagles haven't said anything. All they said when Howie and Sirianni have gone to the podium is AJ's an Eagle as of right now. But you get all these reports. Now, QB1's not there. Fractured relationship, reason why he's on his way out. But then I want to delve into also the trade aspect of this.
Yeah.
And what James Palmer came up with. Now, is that a drive your price up type of report? Or is that actually something there, Mike? That could be something there where they're looking out. You hear Jaguars might get involved, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I don't doubt that Howie does the due diligence and says, hey, now it's weird that it comes out today. I feel like there's still a little too much time between now and June 1st that you would maybe leak this out like the week leading into it to say, hey, time's a ticking here, unless he says, listen, maybe if I leak it out now and people hear that Jacksonville's calling, that reopens the phones post-draft.
Sure.
But I would have to imagine that the due diligence has been done draft night, post-draft, that, hey, we're going to trade AJ to New England unless anybody wants to give me a call. I mean, so I don't know. I think that the Jacksonville thing does make some sense because this team, people forget, won the division, won 13 games, won 8 straight at the end of the year. They have a 35-year-old young GM that might be looking to make a big move here. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they could be involved.
No, I don't think it is either. It makes a lot of sense. Remember, draft picks are coveted for the 2027 draft. A lot of these teams look at 2027 as, oh, there's some gems in that next year's draft. You wonder, can Howie find a way to get a 1 back? And James Palmer, he talked about that on Up and Adams as well. If you can get a 1 back for AJ, Mike, that I think that's a good return if you can get 1 and maybe something else.
What could be happening here, too, is that New England knows we're the only team you're dealing with.
Sure.
We feel like we have the hand. If you want to get rid of A.J. Brown, we'll do it, and we'll give you a first-round pick, but it's only going to be a 2028 first-round pick. So the Eagles might be saying, you know what, we don't want a 2028. We want something else, so let's go back through the Rolodex and see what we can find.
Well, that's why I kind of tend to believe this report is more so on the side of how we trying to drive up the price from the Patriots to try and force their hand a little bit. Hey, look, there's this other team dangling over here. They're going to give me everything I kind of want. What are you going to give me? Because I technically have all the control. He's still under contract. I can wait and just put my feet up even until July.
Yeah, and listen, and I kind of joked on the other side, which was I don't need a A.J. Brown cosplaying Ben Simmons with the cell phone in his pocket, showing up to practice and being a problem here.
I'll tell you what, you just segued into my nugget number 2 just perfectly. It's funny you mentioned Ben Simmons. It's so funny you mentioned him. Do you know he's a champion, Mike? He's a champion fisherman. All right? I don't know if you saw this on social media. It came out. There was a big graphic, big deal. Ben Simmons became a fisherman. He has an ownership stake in a angling club, the South Florida Sales Angling Club to be exact. And they won the Walker's Clay Blue Marlin Open over the weekend, Mike. So our old buddy Ben, I'm so glad you mentioned his name and invoked it right there, because nugget number 2, Ben Simmons is a fishing champion, the Blue Marlin Open, the Walker's K. He is the champ, Mike. Did you see this come out over the weekend? Sixers fans have been going nuts on the socials.
I have seen this, and I wonder, what is a bigger career change as a first-round pick? Ben Simmons, the fisherman, or Danny Watkins, the fireman?
Oh, it's a good question. I think the fisherman's crazier because he was a Danny Watkins was a first-round pick, but Ben Simmons was the number 1 overall pick in the draft and got a max contract. Like, he actually played for a while at a high level, was an all-star. And then, if you have LinkedIn, I know you're not big on the LinkedIn stuff, but sometimes people will put the career transition into their online resume. I think that's what Ben Simmons did after the NBA, after he had back surgery and was released by the Clippers. He put career transition, and now he's got on their South Florida Sales Angling Club, part owner and angler. So there you go.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, Ben Simmons, if you look at the basketball reference page for him, you will see quite a long list of accolades. So for everybody who hated Ben and thought that he absolutely stunk, these are the accolades from Basketball Reference for this championship fisherman. 3-time NBA All-Star, All-NBA, Rookie of the Year, Steals Champion, 2017-18 All-Rookie Team, 2-time All-Defensive Team. So for a guy who many people said stunk, he's filling up the Basketball Reference accolade aisle over there. He was second in All-Defensive Player of the Year in 2020-2021. He finished, listen to this one. He finished 12th in the MVP voting. 12th in the MVP voting. He finished 4th in Defensive Player of the Year. He finished 2nd in Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, This guy was a top 15 MVP candidate. That is unbelievable.
South Florida Sales Angling Club. Those are the champs. Ben Simmons, part of the graphic. He is a champion. Now, if you told me he'd be a champion before Joel Embiid, I mean, I call you crazy. I call you absolutely crazy, Mike. I mean, he is a champion. He can hold up that trophy. You could add that to the list of accolades right there. Add championship fisherman. I mean, this is no joke. This took place in the Bahamas. I mean, this is no joke. Catch a blue marlin. I mean, this is serious stuff, Mike. I mean, you're a fisherman. I mean, it's pretty cool. I like going fishing. It's a lot of fun. But the fact you had this number one pick was supposed to be the face of your franchise has now become a fisherman. I mean, what happened?
Speaking of Fisher, you know our boy Shaner out in EHT. He gave us the coupon for us to go out there and go deep sea.
He did.
I'm about there and wet a line.
I'm about it. Listen, I've gone out 50 miles into the Gulf of Mexico and caught cobia before. All right, I'll put that up against Ben Simmons any day of the week.
Well, maybe Ben needs to recruit you.
Yeah, maybe. I'll add that to my resume.
By the way, Ben Simmons in 2019-2020 averaged 2.1 steals per game, best in the NBA. He averaged 16.4 points. He averaged 8 assists and 8 rebounds. 16, 8, and 8 with 2 steals.
You can't make it up. I mean, I saw this yesterday, and I remember we did the Nugget when he became a part owner of the South Florida Sales. But now the fact that he's a championship, he's investing more into this than he did his basketball career after a while. After that Atlanta series, he's putting more into this than his actual basketball career.
So let's say that Ben Simmons was still playing at the same level that he did his first 4 seasons in the league, okay?
Yep.
You would have Ben Simmons as a 6'10" point guard, rebounding, assist, defending. You'd have Maxey. Now, you probably don't draft Edgecombe because you probably say, well, look, we don't need another backcourt guy.
Do you take
Maybe
Ace?
You get Con Knipple.
Yeah, maybe you probably do take Con Knipple. You probably do at that point because you're going to need a 3-point shooter because of Ben and Joel, you know how it's been for years.
So Con Knipple kind of fills the role of Ilyasova, Bellinelli. Yep. He's the guy on the trail that catches all the threes and has the wide open looks because Ben, he always got the attention in the paint. Then he would kick it out.
Yep.
What could have been, right?
What could have been? Well, he's a champion. I'll give him that. He is a champion. All right, I won't take that away from him. All right, last nugget of the day. Now, Josh texted me this yesterday. Did you watch the post-game interview with Bryson Stott with T-Mac and Kruk?
No.
Okay. If Josh is around, I don't know if he is. He might be running all over the place. If he wants to jump on the mic as well, I could have sworn he dropped an F-bomb. He nearly, he saved himself, but he still said it on the air and MF on the airwaves yesterday during that post-game interview. It was close. I don't know if Josh has any analysis on this.
Oh, I got tons of analysis for you, Nick. So I'm watching the post-game, just like I usually do, because I always like to see who's actually going to get the interview, right? That's always the thing for me. It's all right, who's going to get the on-field interview? And then I see it's Stott. I'm like, oh, it's cool. And they're talking to Stott. And Stott and McCarthy have a cool little back and forth. And Kruk throws in his little dig he usually does, right? And then near the end, he makes the comment that McCarthy does.
Yep.
About, hey, watching, that the crowd react the way they did the home run. And, you could hear Stott in a moment of not thinking about who he was talking to, say, yeah, I was like, holy F. And like you said, Nick, you could tell that he was attempting to not say it, but once it started coming out of his mouth, it was like, you know what, I've already crossed the line. And that's when McCarthy's like, all right, well, Bryson, thanks for joining us today.
And what's crazy is usually that goes nuts on social media, viral, etc. I haven't seen anyone talking about it. No one's talked about it at all.
I think it shows you how few people actually watch the post-game interview.
I was going to say, I haven't heard anybody. Josh brought it up earlier, and I saw him talk about Bohm and his home run, but I didn't hear him drop the F-bomb.
Yeah, I mean, it was close. And I'm going to text it to you, Mike, because you listen back to it, because we obviously can't play FCC airwaves over here. You know, I don't want to take a chance here. But it was, I heard it, because then I'm like, did he just, I'm like, no. And then I switched over to Wembenyama, speaking of UFOs. Wembenyama, he looked unbelievable last night. And I'm like, Josh, I looked down at my phone, and Josh texted me. I'm like, you know what? I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, I thought he did.
By the way, my favorite Phillies after post-game press conference. You know who it is?
Who's that?
You have a guess. Which press
Current?
not press conference. My favorite on-field after the game interview with Kruk and whoever right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
Could it be, trying to think. I don't know. Who would it be? JT?
Who would it be? JT.
Would it be Justin Crawford?
Justin Crawford. He's
Trey?
Boring as can be. No. It's when Johan Duran is there with the translator guy, and he doesn't need the translator, and the poor guy's got to stand there acting like a complete waste. I mean, I'm sitting here with the headset on. I don't even need to translate for the guy, so I'm basically wasting my time.
I didn't expect that answer. I'm not going to lie. I didn't know who to expect, to be honest. I just started rattling off names. I had no idea.
I always so they have the translator guy who basically he's there for like Sosa, Sanchez, Alvarado. Yep. Who else uses
Garcia
him?
now.
I haven't seen Garcia get interviewed yet.
He hasn't
done
much to get interviewed after the
I'm just thinking of guys who speak Spanish.
Yeah, so when they need the Spanish translator, he's usually the guy that answers the question.
Felix Reyes?
But I feel like most of the guys maybe don't need him, but they just don't really feel like answering the question. Duran is actually the one guy that says, I don't need you. You're standing here with me anyway.
He's there anyway, you know.
Oh,
but yeah, I it was interesting. Josh caught it, and I thought I heard it. And I was like,
did anybody else out there listening hear that?
Yeah,
I
thought he said it. I could have sworn he said it, but like he kind of stopped himself. It was interesting. All right, there you go. 3-pack of nugs, Mike.
All right, there you go.
There you go. Later. See ya.
See you, Nick. More Nuggets tomorrow?
Hopefully. I hope.
Okay.
I got a flight in the afternoon, so I'll try and call it.
Yeah, you let me know.
I'll let you know.
I know we got a lot going on this week. All right, Nuggets maybe tomorrow, maybe not. I don't know what the schedules are. It's getting crazy. We're going to be at Ventnor Social tomorrow, so we invite you to come on out and see us at Ventnor Social tomorrow on the show. We will be live at Ventnor Social 6417 Ventnor Avenue in Ventnor, watching the Phils, little day baseball. Come on out, and you can enter to win a trip to go to Baltimore to see the Phillies play the Orioles. We got a great bus trip heading down to Baltimore to go see the Phillies at Camden Yards in Baltimore on July 31st. Stop out tomorrow to enter Ventnor Social. When we come back, former Philly Dave Gallagher joins us. All right, 5 o'clock driving you home. Phil's tonight. Good pitching matchup. Clark Burns and Luzardo. Jesus Luzardo for the Phils. Phil 16-4 in 20 games under Don Mattingly. What has been the main reasons for that 20-game turnaround? Is it, hey, quite frankly, this manager's better than the other manager, paying closer attention to details? Is it, no, the manager doesn't have a lot to do with it. The players are playing better. We'll get into it with a guy who's played the game 9 years in the majors, played for a bunch of different managers. Dave Gallagher is back with us here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Dave, welcome back, man. How you been?
I'm doing good, Mike. I'm doing real good. I know the Phillies are doing even better than me.
They are. They've won 16 out of 20 here. You played for, 7 different teams in your career, so you played for a bunch of different managers. What do you make of how Don Mattingly has taken the same roster and all of a sudden they went from 9-19 to 16-4? What say you about the role that Don Mattingly has played in this?
Well, I really do think there's a Mattingly effect. I do, and I'll try to make my case. When I come on your show, I try to give your listeners maybe a point of view that they don't typically see, or maybe they can watch games a little different. So I think there's the obvious reasons that there was a turnaround that wouldn't have mattered if it was Don Mattingly or Don Smith. There's a favorable schedule. We knew that. I think, and think back to the comments that Bryce Harper made after the change. I think some fans took it the wrong way. I'll be close with this. I'll paraphrase, but he said something about, we were all in here, and it's kind of sticky in the clubhouse. We're all waiting for the shoe to drop. And I think some people took that as he wanted the manager fired, which obviously none of them did. But I think what he meant, and I've been through 2 of them, is it's like a snowball rolling downhill. Once it starts, you push it away. Starts with small conversations when you're stretching down the line before a game. Hey, we better start hitting, or we're going to cost the manager his job. And then it builds up. Then a writer comes into the locker room and asks somebody, do you think Rob's job is on the line? And you push it back. No, why would it be his fault? It's our fault. That's how it rolls. And then you lose, you start playing worse, pressure takes over. You look at circumstances when you're relaxed, you're fine, but all of a sudden now, if I don't drive in a run, we're going to lose again. So I think that's what he meant, is simply, okay, that pressure is gone. A lot of them probably went in to Rob's office and apologized and took accountability, but then it's over and you move on. That's obvious. Wheeler coming back and Durant coming back, obvious. Sanchez and Luzardo pitching better. But here's I think the more subtle but good reasons why I think Mattingly makes a big difference. There's an imbalance. We've all known this. Anybody who's watched the Phillies or a fan of Phillies, there's an imbalance of left-handed hitters on this team. They're trying to plug in some right-handers, and it just hasn't worked out. But Mattingly was a left-handed hitter, and he wasn't just a left-handed hitter. Borderline Hall of Famer that has hit. And I watched him. I played against him. He would grind with 2 strikes. He would really fight to keep his front side in, especially against tough lefties. And he'd use the other side of the field. Now, he's watched these guys, and he's watched some of them look terrible against left-handed pitchers. There is a marked difference to the approach and the mechanical swings. And I actually heard you say, I think it was sometime last week, but Mattingly was there. He could have done something about it. Then he could have said something. But I want to tell you 2 instances. I get long, so you cut me off if you need to. But twice. Once when I first got called up to Cleveland, I had a guy. It was a bullpen coach. He had just got named bullpen coach. He got a big league job. He managed me for 3 years in AAA. He knew me inside and out. He knew what my swing looked like when I was going well and what I looked like when I was in a slump. And he walked up to me. I was struggling in the beginning of spring training. He walked up to me in the outfield. He made sure nobody else was around, stood about 5 feet from me. He said, David, keep your head straight ahead. I'm going to talk to you, but I don't want anybody to see me talking to you. And he started telling me, like, you're going really hard to your front side. You know, slow your lower half down. Like, when you keep your weight back, you see the ball. And I thought, like, why does he have to tell me like this? But that's the way it is. It's like an unwritten rule that you don't step on other guys' toes. My hitting coach was Bobby Bonds, not Barry. That's how old I am. Barry's dad. And this Doc was his name. He did not want Bobby to see him talking to me about hitting. One other quick one with Jimmy Williams. Jimmy,
with
who
one
managed
M.
Boston. You remember him. He managed Boston. He managed Toronto. All of a sudden, he's a bench coach with Atlanta when I played for the Braves. And I asked him, I said, by the way, him and I think I said this on your show, him and John Vukovic from the Phillies were the best coaches that I've ever had that could teach everybody on the roster in any part of the game. So I said, Jimmy, do you mismanage him? And he said, he thought about it, which made me, you know, he listened and he respects me enough to put some thought into this answer. And he said, no, I don't. He said, I'll tell you why. When I managed, I didn't really get to teach as much because everybody had a role in a category that they were hired for, and I didn't want to step on them. So it's just like make out the lineup card. He goes, I'd rather teach. And now it swings us back to Mattingly. I've watched him. Every once in a while, I'm watching a game on TV, and the camera goes down the dugout. And I've seen him 2 different occasions move Bryce off the bag, tell him to play back with a left-handed hitter up, and they had a lead late in the game. Not every team does that. Some teams will hold him on, will still shoot for double play here. Twice and my only point is he's managed twice. He's a little older. He's comfortable in his own skin. And I think he's comfortable walking around that clubhouse and walking right up to the batting cage during BP and making a comment. I just think, I wish, like I know you have guys on, guests on your show that cover the team. I would love to hear somebody ask him that question. Do you work with the guys with their swings? You know, you probably have heard what I have, that he goes out first base with Bryce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man, he was like Keith Hernandez on defense, like that good as a defensive first baseman. Pickett enjoyed playing the position. So long way of saying, I just think that there's a difference. It's not putting down Rob Thompson. It's just saying they're not the same people. They may have the same type of laid-back personality, but, man, if Don Mattingly is talking to you, you're going to listen.
Yeah.
He commands that respect because of his resume and his background, and I wish the players, they're a lot younger than me, that would have had a chance to see the way he went about it, his work ethic, the way he would grind through at bats. But, Mike, are you seeing what I'm seeing as far as when I think about Marsh facing lefties, a lot of his hits have come to the left side of the field. He's making a conscious effort to keep his front side in and hit the ball the other way.
Yeah, well, Marsh is a big one, Dave, where, you know, he's got a pretty big sample size against lefties, and it has not been good. So what goes into saying you've now built up enough equity that I'm going to give you another opportunity, even though the numbers say you're not really good at doing this? Because he's up to 340. Now he's starting to struggle a little bit here, so I'm wondering what ends up happening, because he was at 340, and now all of a sudden you look at it and you're saying, okay, he's not a 340 hitter, but he's down to 327, which is still very good. But what goes into maybe saying, I want to give you another chance at hitting lefties?
You think we prepared this little talk, because you just fed me perfect. So if you were Mattingly, right, while Thompson was managing.
For the record, people, Dave does not know my questions beforehand.
No, but that was perfect, because if you were Don Mattingly, and I know Josh is listening in the background, or maybe he's not, I don't know, but picture yourself being Don Mattingly as a bench coach. You're seeing everything, and now, if you're reading, well, Marsh has not hit left-handers in most of his career, and he's 4 for his last 37 or whatever. But you're watching him swing. And if you feel like, man, he's just flying open with his front side, he's intimidated by that arm coming from the left side. So first thing he's going to think of is, he's got to keep his front side in longer. Well, how do you do that? You got to look to drive the ball to the opposite field. Any ex-major leaguer, any alumni will tell you when they struggle, they'll come back, they'll sacrifice power, they'll sacrifice some things to just find that swing again. And the way you're going to find it is by thinking the other way, because you see the pitch a little bit longer, your head stays down a little bit better, and your takes get better because you're getting a few extra feet of the pitch as opposed to pulling it. By the way, on that point, well, let me finish that. So I think Mattingly went in with some ideas on what he was going to do with some hitters. I think that's why it's giving a guy another shot. Let's go to work first. I'm sure he went down with Kevin Long and said, let's try some things here. Drive everything the other way, even if it's an inside strike. Get inside of it, drive it the other way. And now you're seeing it longer. You're a little more balanced. So did you notice with Garcia, who's really struggled all year? They need him to be a run producer in the middle of that lineup. I think it's there, but he has really struggled. But yesterday, this is to my point, first at bat, hard line drive to right field, sac fly. He didn't get anything out of it. He did get the RBI, job done, but he waited and smoked it the other way. Next at bat, on an inside strike, he stayed inside of it and hit a soft line drive to second. He got beat because I think he's working the other way. That was his goal. Next at bat, a seed to right field, almost identical to the first one. Both times, the right fielder made nice running over-the-shoulder catches to the track. And then the last at bat, he just got under and flew out to center. Everything was on the right side of second base or right over second base. So my guess is they're working with him to try to get him on track the same way as I believe Marsh and Schwarber. But it's not a coincidence, man. They have an overbalance of left-hand hitters. Why would you not want a guy who's had so much success as a left-handed hitter, you know?
Yeah, and
Makes
listen,
perfect sense to me.
right now, Marsh, 250 against lefties. Now, sample size very small. He's 8 for 32, but that is significantly better than where he has been. He is 346 against right-handers, so he's having an incredible year against right-handers. So Marsh, he has been one guy who has helped out. What about Bohm? And we'll get to Stott in a bit. But Bohm, he was horrendous to the point I think we were ready, and you and I have been kind of Bohm guys and like Bohm, but it was hard to even say, okay, I can see him turning this around. What has changed, Dave, with Alec Bohm, who, by the way, in the month of May, which spans 55 at-bats now, he is hitting 345 with a 390 on base, a 953 OPS.
Yeah. Confidence is an amazing thing. People believing in you is an amazing thing. So, we're talking about Marsh and now Bohm. To have the manager who's filling out the lineup card come up to you and say, hey, look, to Marsh, I think you can be an everyday player. I'll pick your days, maybe against really tough lefties to give you a day off, but we need you out there. You're our best shot. Your defense is phenomenal, and we need you out there. So you're our best choice. And then with Bohm, I really think Bohm started off the year with issues off the field.
He did.
Understandable. Yeah, understandable issues. I read about that, and I thought, man, sometimes, Mike, when you have an issue, I might have talked about this with you, but Dwight Evans from the Red Sox, I had Walt Hriniak as a hitting coach with the White Sox, and he had Dwight when he was the hitting coach with Boston. And he told me that Dwight has some severe medical issues with, I think, 2 of his children. And Walt Hriniak used to tell me, this was his escape coming to the ballpark. The amount of work and the amount of focus needed to perform at that level for the time of the game, from the time he stepped onto the field until the last out, his focus allowed him, it freed him up from thinking about his kids, the issues that he was having at home. And that sucks because as soon as the game is over, your brain goes right back to that, like the reality of my life. I think it can happen the other way, where it just rips apart your focus and you're lost. He looked lost in the season. Now, even on his outs, it's not like an overreaction and the shoulders dropping. You know, his body language can get really bad when he struggles. I think some people hide it better than others. I would never judge anybody on it because it's not a fun part of the game when you're failing miserably, and it's how you raise your family, you know?
Yeah, he, by the way, it's an amazing turnaround. It's much like last year. Wasn't quite as bad in April last year. He was hitting 157 in the month of April. He is now up to 345 in the month of May, which has now brought his average all the way up to 217. And then there's Stott, another guy who has been a guy that, you know, a lot of people like and think, should be a really good hitter. And for whatever reason, it has not been the guy that I think we anticipated or hoped for. But he is also starting to come around, and he is 28 years old now. You wonder if some of these guys learn some more tricks of the trade as they get a little older to help them get out of these things, because Bryson Stott, by the way, Dave, I don't know if you heard this, he leads the majors in RBI in the month of May with 18 RBI. So Stott's going pretty good right now. He's up to 226. And it's not like crazy. He's only hitting 254 in the month of May, but he's giving you much better at-bats.
And I think that's what you want to look for as a fan, is exactly that. If you're going to bat 500-600 times in a season, you're going to make your share of outs for sure. So to me, it's all about consistency of approach. It's hard. Like, I remember when I would slide, and when I would slide, meaning my batting average hitting over 300, then struggle, falls into the 290s. Well, let's keep it above 290. I only got a month and a half left. Then it's in the 280s, and I'm physically getting a little bit weaker. You know, the season has been a drag on me. I'm playing center field every day. And then it's 267, and oh man, you just die with it. You would think like, well, just stick with your approach, but it's just difficult sometimes because that pitcher, he could care less if you're struggling. You know, he's going to stick it to you every chance he gets. But yes, Stott has turned it around. Bohm has turned it around. Really, I think the only guy left is Garcia, and he's such an important.
Maybe Turner. Maybe Turner.
Turner's starting to come back. I feel like he is what he is. Like, it's easy to describe him. He is. You've heard me say this so many times. The only reason I don't like him as a leadoff guy is because, and I wouldn't try to change him, he's just so aggressive. You know, and he swings a lot of times first pitch. And I know it's, you know, most of the time you only lead off once when you're the leadoff hitter, that first inning. But to swing and make an out on the first pitch of the game, you learn nothing in the dugout. If a guy has a 6 or 7 pitch out, you gain a lot because you can find out, does his fastball, is he got movement on it? How hard is he throwing today? Because that can vary. You know, has he got bite on his breaking ball? Like, you just learn a lot, and it makes you better as a team with your approach against that particular pitcher. But that's just me. I think he'll be fine in the end. He'll get his share of hits. I do think they're running a little bit more, right, Mike? Like, they look like they're picking up the stolen base attempts, and I think that's a good thing.
Well, I will say it's easy to pick up the stolen base attempts when you're on base.
When you're getting on base, right?
But yeah, I like, it looks like there is more of a swagger to this team, and you know, one of the things I want to see what you think. You know, they get off to a 9-19 start, and it looks like a lifeless team. And I actually opined, I don't think Rob Thompson got fired because he was a bad manager and did a bad job. I think they just needed a different voice, which is why I probably would have made the change in the offseason, is what I said. I was like, you're bringing the same roster back. Something had to change. I think the messaging needed to change. And it looked like a team, Dave, that entered the season knowing, we'll just get back to the playoffs and try again. And they got punched in the face. It was like, it's not a fait accompli. You're going to make the playoffs. And I think they needed that switch.
Absolutely. I don't think that the intention was to fire Rob Thompson at some point during the year. I don't. It came down to how they played. They played so poorly. And then the poor play just steamrolled through everybody. You know, it was contagious. Every phase of the game. Then they were looking like they didn't understand how to play the game. It just been part of it. It's rough. But I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Here's a tough one. If Alex Cora picks up the phone or has his agent pick up the phone tomorrow and calls Dave Dombrowski and says, "I changed my mind. I've been home. You know, it's harder with all these kids around the house. I want to get back to the field. I'd like to manage."
Wow.
Would you hire him, or do you keep Mattingly?
Oh, man. I think at this stage, you just got to keep rolling with Mattingly here. I mean,
Why?
Yeah, right? I mean, and then say, hey, look, we'll revisit this in the offseason. We'll talk to Don, see what his intentions are. But I think it would be extremely difficult to go to a third manager in the same year.
Yeah, I guess my point was, I think
it's a great question.
I think they dodged the bullet. I really do. And think of how close this was. If Alex Cora says yes, Mattingly's not the manager. And now what I'm going to say, I don't know Alex Cora's family background, but I know Joey Cora is an awesome third base coach. I just from watching games on TV, I went, that guy, if I was ever a manager, he'd be the first guy I would interview to see if he'd be my third base coach. He's so good at it. And that tells me that between the two of them, they just know the game. So I'm wondering, like, did dad teach them? I don't know, but whatever, their background is awesome in baseball, but so is Mattingly's. So again, I go back to, if you wait and you now all of a sudden hits the off season, great move by Cora, because there's going to be several managers that get fired. And now he's going to be able to demand a lot of money, maybe a lot of years, a lot of control. I make all decisions around here. Mattingly is in a different spot in his life. I don't even know if he would want to continue beyond the year. And who knows? They could fall flat on their face the rest of the year, not make the playoffs. And then they have to almost make a change.
This series they got coming up, they got the Padres, the Dodgers, and the Padres. This will be kind of interesting. Because one of the things, we talk about Mattingly and the role that he's had. And I do think that a lot of it has been behind the scenes, little different things here. Yeah. Because the lineup's the same. It's not like he said, man, Thompson was doing this with the lineup, and I'm going to do this, and that will unlock everything. The lineup's the same, right? I mean, the pitching has just been even Sanchez wasn't pitching his normal way, and then you didn't have Wheeler, which meant you were using Taijuan Walker, and then when you use Taijuan Walker, your bullpen gets used up. And, it was all a domino effect, but I definitely think that the mindset changed of – the messaging was stale. And because, look, it's not like normally, Dave, when a guy gets fired, you go from a calm guy to a in-your-face guy. And then from the in-your-face guy to the calm. Don Mattingly's as calm as Thompson is.
Yes, he is. You know what? You're making me think. I've heard you and Josh on the air talk about, like, who's making the lineup. Is it the guys upstairs? So I just wanted to give a simple example of what I believe is the difference between analytics and experience. Now, I'm not the guy that says, you get analytics out of baseball. It's always been in. It's just better now. It's better technology. It used to be you write things on a piece of paper and it's at your locker. Now it's just better technology. But, if you took are you a right-handed hitter?
Yes,
Mike?
Right-handed.
All right, so guy throws you a fastball. He's mid-90s. If you took a swing and you foul it up over the first base dugout as a right-handed hitter, and analytics will tell you that was a bad swing. But analytics is not going to teach you what to do to fix that swing. Experience, that's a simple way of putting it, but experience tells me within 3 seconds before the next pitch is thrown, I was late and I was under. Because the clue is where the ball went. Mm-hmm. It went up. That means I was under. It went over the first base dugout. I was late. I can picture in my mind exactly where my barrel was in relationship to my hands when I struck the ball. Even though I'm swinging as hard as I can and the ball's coming in hard, I know exactly what happened on point of contact. Now my fix, let me get on top and let me be a little early with my barrel. Like that's what's going through a hitter's head when he steps out of the box. If you think about, like, I don't know, I've never shot a real gun, and I don't want to use that as an example in this day and age, but think about a paintball gun. If I shoot at you, we're playing against each other. If I shoot a paintball at you and it splats above your head and to the right, I'm going to move down and to the left.
Right, exactly.
And it's not going to take me much time, because if I don't do it quick, you're going to get a shot off of me, and I'm done. So that's kind of like hitting. You're responding to what you saw, and you're fixing. Some guys lock up on that. Like and I think it happens more now than ever because sometimes they get fed so much information. It's someone else controlling your career.
Right.
Do this with your hands. Do this with your feet. Like sometimes there was a quick interview with Stott a few weeks ago. He had a good game. He got a post-game interview. And he actually said, maybe I got to stop revamping my entire swing. Ooh, that one, I heard that and I went, uh-oh. That's what's happened.
Well, we heard a lot of that, especially with Kingery when Caplan was here and he was trying to turn him into some crazy stuff, and that really messed up his whole career. But, Dave, it's always an educational conversation, and it's amazing how fast it goes by. We'll catch up here soon. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, man. I know it's supposed to be crappy weather, but we'll catch up soon, man.
All right, take care, Mike.
Dave Gallagher, everybody, 9 years in the majors, and he played with the Phillies in 1995. If you didn't learn something there, it was a great conversation. I always enjoy talking to Dave. Coming up, all right, we're going to shift it over to A.J. Brown. What are they saying in New England? Do they think this is a done deal? My buddy Nick Cattles hosts the Locked On Patriots podcast. You'll hear what he thinks coming up next. All right, 5:32, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Phil's lineup against the Reds: Turner, Harper, Bone, Marsh, Garcia, Stott, Sosa, Crawford, Marchand. And your Phillies lineup today is brought to you by my guys over at Key Acura. Go see Rocco and the team at Key Acura. Now through May 31st, you can lease a sporty 2026 Acura Integra for $199 a month, 36 months. Key Acura, Chilton Road, EHT. Visit KeyAcuraAC.com. Go see what all the excitement's about. Well, what will the excitement be about for the Eagles? They're back on the field on Tuesday for OTAs. First ones, voluntary. I would imagine no A.J. Brown, just a hunch. But is A.J. Brown as good as gone? What do the people in New England think? Nick Cattles is the host of Locked On Patriots. As we're getting closer and we're starting to hear things, is there other teams involved, or is this a fait accompli, a done deal that A.J. Brown will be in Patriots, red, white, and blue? Nick Cattles, what are we thinking here? Where is this Jacksonville stuff coming from? Is this a done deal? Is A.J. Brown a Patriot?
I think he's going to be, Mike. I mean, all signs point to that, right? It feels like the Patriots, if they're not the only team involved, they are the favorite, according to pretty much every single insider. The Jacksonville stuff last minute, I'm not really buying it. It kind of feels like if this was leaked, it was leaked probably from Philly's side to try to gain a little bit more leverage, but I don't know how you feel. To me, it feels like whether or not a deal, every single detail was ironed out between Philadelphia and New England, was actually done, every single detail known or not. It does feel like there's been some kind of handshake deal going back to before the draft, which allowed the teams to approach the draft in the way that they did. And we know that Philly obviously moved up from Kyle Lemon. Meanwhile, the Patriots did not draft a single wide receiver and still continue to talk to teams about dealing Kayshon Boutte.
So, knowing what we know about Howie Roseman and how he's viewed around the league, do we anticipate that Roseman is bypassing all these other teams and just taking this handshake potential deal from what we're hearing is being reported? This is, Nick, where I have the hold up a little bit. Does Howie Roseman view the Eagles, this team, 2026, as a Super Bowl contender? And if he, in fact, does, which I have to think he does he take a 2028 first and get nothing to help the 2026 Eagles? Does that sound right to you?
I think he does if he feels like it's addition by subtraction. If he feels like, hey, look, moving A.J. Brown off this football team and going out and getting Mekhi Lemon via the draft and putting him out there right now, day one, to work with Devontae Smith, and then go out and trade for a guy in Dontavian Wicks who knows the offense, understands what Sean Mannion's trying to do and all that stuff. Howie Roseman might look at this and say, look, short-term future, first 2 months of the season, we might feel it a little bit, but at the end of the day, we've got a guy who we think is going to cooperate a little bit more. We went out, we drafted Eli Stowers, so now we have two tight ends that can work the middle of the football field. We're trying to get Jalen Hurts to throw the football to the middle of the field. So let's bring in guys who are, quote-unquote, with the program, who are talented. We still got Saquon. We still got this offensive line. We're still going to try to run the ball down your throat. And hopefully, those younger receivers and the guys that we brought into town this offseason will be able to, supplant A.J. Brown without some of the drama and without some of the friendship, that used to be there and now seems to be fractured. Outside looking in, it just feels like, Mike, A.J. Brown doesn't want to be in Philly. And so at a certain point, you got to say to yourself, have we done everything we can do with this player? And if the player is not happy, if the player doesn't want to be there, how much is that going to impact our football team? And if you're Howie Roseman and you've got the defense that you've got, and again, you've got some of the weapons that you brought in offensively to try to replace A.J. Brown, sometimes it's just better to remove somebody from the room.
Nick Cattles is the host of Locked On Patriots podcast. And, of course, for the last, really since the Super Bowl, everybody believing that A.J. Brown's going to go there to New England. Now, let me ask you, Nick, are you surprised then that there's not more interest in A.J., or do you think just everybody backed off because he seemingly wants to go to New England?
I think it could be a combination of both. First, there was a report from Burt Breer going back a couple of months ago saying that AJ had his list, and we've gone through this with every sport, right? Every player has their list. If you're a top player, you give your list to the team and say, this is where I want to go. And when you look at AJ Brown's contract situation, it feels like he's going to get a restructuring here, right? It feels like he's going to get some kind of new contract with new money infused because the money dries up at the end of this year and you could just wave goodbye to him after 2026. So that feels like the representation and A.J. Brown want to sit down wherever he goes to get a contract extension. So, number one, where does Brown want to finish his NFL career? Because the next stop is probably his last stop. And he's going to have some say or try to have some say with that. But also when you look around, how many teams need a one who's probably, going to creep closer to being a number 2 guy within the next 18 months to 2 years? How many teams want a player like that, need a player like that? How many teams already feel comfortable with what they have at wide receiver? How many teams are trying to work in younger wide receivers and develop them to be number 1 or number 2 guys and think, hey, if we bring in A.J. Brown, it's going to stunt the growth? How many teams have the money to bring in A.J. Brown, not only right now, but also again, in the future, if he does want an extension, which I think he's going to want. So how many teams are going to be comfortable paying for him? How many teams are comfortable with the knee situation? Mike Vrabel obviously has inside information from his time at Tennessee. He knows A.J. Brown's personality. He knows what makes him tick. I do think, even though it sounds kind of corny, I do think A.J. Brown kind of always dreaming to play for the Patriots and, Julian Edelman being his favorite player growing up, I do think that kind of pulls at the heartstrings and makes him want to kind of work within the fabric to go along with Mike Vrabel of the football team. So, it's not always just one thing, Mike. You got to look at all of it. And as you look at all the different, tentacles to this A.J. Brown story, if you're bringing him in, you got to make sure he works out, which is the biggest thing. Do you believe that he could corrupt your young quarterback? Do you think he's going to bring some of the drama to the new place? If you're not Mike Vrabel and you don't have that history with Brown, can you truly trust him to be with the program by the middle of the year? So there's just so many factors into the A.J. Brown equation that I just can't look at one and say, oh, that's why.
Yeah, and Nick, I want to kind of get your take because this is, you said it, it's got a lot of tentacles on it, which really started in week 10 of last year and then crossed into the Super Bowl. We all know what happened after that and where it kind of came from and where we are now. Has it just felt like, no, this is New England all the time, or wait a second, what is it? Like, this thing is spun all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think this is the ultimate, quote unquote, we trust in Vrabel, from whether it's the front office or ownership or the fan base. I'm not sure people, including myself, I don't know if I would be sold on the idea of trading a 2028 first-round pick, if that's what it takes, to bring in A.J. Brown if Mike Vrabel wasn't in New England. I think the Mike Vrabel connection does matter a lot here because Vrabel has proven that he makes strong connections with players. He has proven to get, a lot out of A.J. Brown. That relationship has maintained throughout the time when they haven't, worked alongside each other. And it does feel like A.J. Brown is at the point of, hey, man, I probably have 2 or 3 years left. And I'm not saying, top 10 receiver years left, but I probably got 2 or 3 years left to my NFL career. And I want to go play for a guy that I trust, that I believe in. And I think so when you look at the Mike Vrabel part of this, it's just so significant because it does allow you, if you're the Patriots or you're a Patriots fan, Patriots media member, it does allow you to look at this and say, yeah, I think it could work with Vrabel. I'm not sure it could work with a lot of other, coaches or a lot of other places, but with this specific head coach, with their specific relationship, with the need that Drake May has and how A.J. Brown fits that need for this Patriots roster, it makks some sense.
I guess, and Vrabel's still in pretty secure standing. I mean, has that been rocky at all with all of his off-the-field stuff that has come out over the last 2 months?
Look, it's not ideal, right? I don't think anybody's throwing a parade over the Diana Rossini situation, but the toughest time that I understand, talking to some people that, have talked to some people and following along with everything that's happened over the past, what's it been, month and a half, 2 months? It feels like it's been 3 years. But following along and hearing some things, it feels like the biggest issue that Vrabel had was towards the beginning of this thing, where he came out on Monday when the guys first showed up, and he said, I didn't say anything publicly outside of what he said to the New York Post, which was just silly to say. But he said, I haven't spoken publicly about this because I wanted to talk to the team first, which made sense, right? Because he's big on, make connections and be close and be honest and make good decisions. And, if you're going to preach accountability and all this stuff and responsibility, you kind of got to be responsible and make sure that you're accountable in front of the guys. So everybody understood that. It's like, okay, so he had his conversation and supposedly inside the facility, those conversations went well. The players were like, all right, he made a mistake, no big deal. The biggest issue was it came back on draft day, and that, the pictures of when they were at a bar back in 2020 together. And apparently Vrabel had to go back to the team and have another conversation. And it was at that point where guys were like, wait a minute, I thought you said this was like this was a mistake and stuff, but now you got to come back and you got to, try to say more and figure out the best way to put it when we already just had this conversation a few days ago. I don't think the entire locker room was like, we're going to have a mutiny over this, because we just, and I know, Mike, look, it's not condoning the activity, but in professional sports, Mike Vrabel will be far from the first or last head coach to have an affair. But, I think the guys some of the guys looked with a side eye and said, well, okay, now you came back to us. This is the second time. So how can we believe, can we really believe in what you're telling us if you're just going to come back a few days later and tell us something different? So that felt like it was at its rockiest moment. But by all reports, people in the building say over the past few weeks, he's gone back to kind of the same Mike Vrabel, gregarious, loud, the personality in the room, and on the practice field, he's looked like the same coach. He's jumping into drills.
Well, are they bracing? Are they bracing for more?
That's it. All comes down to what Mike told him, right? I mean, I think ownership, the Crafts have to sit down. If you're the owner, right, of any football team, and this happens, or any team, period, end of sentence, you got to sit down with the coach and say, all right, tell me what really happened here.
Yeah.
Tell me as much as you can, because we've got to cover our own tuchus, right? CYA. We can't allow this to embarrass the organization. If this is going to continue to happen, Mike, it's going to be a disaster. So at that point, you got to believe in Mike Vrabel sitting down with ownership and saying, look, this is what happened. And as far as the pictures that have come out recently, to me, it's, those pictures haven't changed any of the story. It's no new information. We have pictures of them in 2020 together all over each other at a bar. And then we have pictures in 2026 at an Arizona resort. So you kind of assume what's implied is that they've been together since 2020 all the way through until at least you go back to March of 2026.
Right,
so
right.
Any picture that comes out in 2021 or 2022 with, she was pregnant on a boat with Mike Vrabel, but we knew that she was pregnant during that time period. So I just don't think that changes much of the math.
All right, Nick Cattles, Locked On Patriots. Universally, you said it's basically in Vrabel we trust, but is there trepidation about giving up a first-round pick for this player?
Yeah, I do think there are some people who have concerns about it. I'm less concerned for the 28th than I would be for 2027, because by 2028 you've had.
That's why, Nick, I do think if somebody popped in and said we'll give you something better, that there could be a little bit, because to me Roseman is just too crafty to just sit here for 2 months waiting for June 1st to come around.
I get what you're saying, but it depends on relationships. It depends on how those conversations have gone. Again, has Howie exhausted every possible avenue? I would imagine he has. And could a team jump in the 23rd hour? Sure, but is that team going to jump in and give a first-round pick up? And if they're going to give up a first-round pick, they've got to give up a first-round pick in 2027. And everything that we read and everything that we hear is teams do not want to trade picks in 2027. So, I mean, if the Pats are willing to give up a 2028 first, it's probably the best that you can do. So if that was what was on the table, that's what's on the table.
Nick Hattles, Locked On Patriots. We'll see if A.J. Brown will be a member of the Patriots. Many believe that will happen. We'll see. The Eagles are back on the field on Tuesday. We'll have full coverage of the OTAs here. Football at 4 on the Sports Bash. Nick, we'll probably catch up at some time in the future soon, I would imagine.
Look forward to it, Mike. Always good catching up with you, man.
All right, Nick Hattles, everybody. Check him out on the Locked On Patriots podcast. When we come back, we wrap up today's show and get you ready for tomorrow here coming up next. All right, getting ready to get out of here on this Tuesday night. Some Phils tonight. By the way, some quick Phils news. Aiden Miller is about ready to begin light baseball activities. Good to hear, I guess. 5 o'clock hour brought to you by our friends at Boxing Insider Promotions.
The biggest heavyweight showdown of South Jersey boxing history. June 13th, Tropicana Showroom in Atlantic City. 2 South Jersey undefeated fighters, Holy Spirit's Josh Popper and Absegami High School's Bruce Selden Jr. face off. One person will leave with only a 0 and the other one with a loss. In the matchup, of course, New Jersey bantamweight John Leonardo and Pleasantville's super lightweight Julio Sanchez III are both back in action as well. Tropicana Showroom in Atlantic City. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. Saturday, June 13th, presented by Boxing Insider Promotions.
All right, that's going to be an awesome fight. Selden and Popper, make sure if you're a fight fan, you get those tickets early. And obviously, it will be a good one with Boxing Insider Promotions. All right, Sports Bash Live tomorrow. We will be at Ventnor Social. Stop out and see us tomorrow for the live Phillies day game watch party. The Sports Bash will be live at Ventnor Social tomorrow. You can check us out 2 to 6. The Phillies' first pitch tomorrow is an early one. It's a 1:05 start for the Phils tomorrow. So get there early. Watch the Phillies. We'll be there. And all day long, stop on out. You can win a road trip to Camden Yards. You stop by Ventnor Social tomorrow for our Sports Bash Phillies watch party. Enter to win a trip to Camden Yards in Baltimore to see the Phillies play the Orioles. That game is on July 31st. Ventnor Social tomorrow, 6417 Ventnor Avenue in Ventnor. We've got a couple more broadcasts live for the Phillies day game watch parties there. We're going to be there Wednesday. We'll be there Thursday, June 4th. We'll be there Wednesday, July 29th, and that is the day we're giving away the Camden Yards trip. We'll also be there Wednesday, August 26th, and Thursday, September the 10th. So still got 5 chances to come on out and check out Ventnor Social if you haven't been there yet. It is a spot you want to definitely check out if you're someone who lives on the island and you haven't been there yet, or if you're just somebody who likes to check out new spots, Ventnor Social is a good spot for you. We'll also be in Cape May County for some Phillies watch parties at Yuri's in Wildwood. And our first show at Yuri's in Wildwood will be on June 17th. We will be there for a Phillies day game watch party. We'll also be there on July the 2nd, July 14th, and I believe we will be there one more time in August on the 12th. So a bunch of chances to come out and watch the Phillies with the Sports Bash. We hope to see as many people as possible this summer. Stop out, say hello. We'll see you tomorrow at Ventnor Social. Have a great night, everybody.